Good morning, everybody. How are you? So we're going to try and, kind of breeze through this. We know there is some weather on the way. We were scheduled to have a lot more people here in person, but I think the weather kind of scared some off. So a lot of them will be zooming in. And that's what we were trying to figure out earlier, how to get our hybrid format working here. So I want to welcome everybody to our 2023 grants workshop. I'm Kane Chamberlain, Executive Director of the Endless Mountains Heritage Region. And we have a nice lineup of presenters today to tell you a little bit about the grant opportunities available in our area. We'll be talking about our mini grants program at the end. That's scheduled to open in April. We are an organization committed to historic preservation, outdoor recreation development, some educational programming, and agricultural support. We also manage the North Branch Susquehanna River Water Trail, which we successfully nominated as River of the Year for the state of Pennsylvania this year. Yeah, you can apply. We are really excited to have a nice lineup of events this summer regarding the water trail. We're going to be doing some river cleanups, a week-long sojourn from Sayre to Chickashinny. We're going to be doing some benefit paddles to help out our local parks and museums, historical societies. And we have a great expo that we're going to be doing at the Wyoming County Fairgrounds in September. So if you know of any outdoor rec businesses or museums, historical societies, we also are welcoming a lot of our heritage partners to the fairgrounds as well. We want to make it a really nice event where people can come and do everything from learn how to fly fish from the Fish and Boat Commission to buy their brand new kayak or a gravel bike or what have you. So we want to make it a really cool event. First, we are going to have Christine Vittori. She is DCNR's Northeast Regional Advisor. We also have Paul McNoskey, Regional Director for the Department of Community and Economic Development. Robin Cummings, who is the Executive Director of the Bradford County Tourism Promotion Agency. She's going to be talking about their room tax grant program. And will be followed up by Jean Rowe. She's the Executive Director of the Endless Mountain Visitors Bureau. So they have a room tax program for their 3 counties, which collectively cover all 4 in our region. Karen Arnold is from the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. She is their Keystone Historic Preservation Grant Manager. We also have Katie Smith from Northern Tier Regional Planning and Development Commission. She's their Economic Development Program Manager. Janice Sweeney, Vice President of the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. April Hannon, Project Manager for PennDOT District 4. And as I said, I will be talking about EHMR's program. Unfortunately, Krista Rocher, the Economic Development Specialist for Progress Authority, could not be here today. He had a last-minute issue, and we're hoping everything's okay with that. But I will put up Chris's contact information so you can reach out to him. He's really good at letting people know what grant opportunities are available to local businesses and things like that. Perhaps he will send something along that I can share with all of the participants. So he said he was going to be working on that. But first up, I want to welcome Christine Vittori from the DCNR. Thanks, Christine. Yeah.
You guys hear me without a microphone? Yes. Yeah, and it's, oh wait, I forgot they're online.
Yeah.
All right, we have to use the microphone.
Yeah, probably so.
Let us know if they can't hear us.
We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, you have somebody you can, yeah, all right. So good morning, everyone. As Kane said, I'm Christine Vittori. I'm a regional advisor for the Bureau of Recreation and Conservation, which is one of our 6 bureaus under the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. On behalf of our acting secretary, Cindy Dunn, appreciate everybody coming out here today. Cindy has been our secretary for the last 4 years, and now with our new Governor Shapiro, we hopefully will see that she remains our secretary. She has been nominated, so she just has to go through the process of getting appointed. So we're really excited to be here. We also manage our Community Conservation Partnership Program, which is one of our larger grant programs here in the state for recreation and conservation. Just to get an idea of who's here in the audience, I don't know if they can do this online, but how many represent a municipality that are here in the audience? Nonprofit organization. Oh, look at all of you, nonprofit organizations. And then other, we'll do other. State agency, there you go. I know we have a few state agencies. So our Bureau of Recreation and Conservation, we have a mission. We want to be a leader in providing recreational opportunities for all to enjoy, protecting the Commonwealth's natural and heritage resources, and advancing what we call the greening of Pennsylvania. One of the ways we do that is by working with our partners such as yourselves, our municipalities, our nonprofits, our local land trusts, our heritage partners, our conservation landscape partners. We realize we can't do this all on our own. So we know that we, even with our fellow state agencies, we know that we have to work with our partners to make sure that we're advancing the mission of the Bureau. So like I said, one of our larger programs that is one of the things that allows us to do what we do and work with our partners is our Community Conservation Partnership Program. One thing you probably know about state agencies is we love acronyms. So you have DCD, BRC, DCNR, PennDOT. We call this our Community Conservation Partnership Program, which is also known as C2P2. How many here in the audience have applied for the statewide DCNR grant program in the past? Okay, have a couple of you. So right now the grant program is open. Our grant workshop was held virtually in November. We do have it online. There are several YouTube videos. If you're interested in a grant application, it is very important that you watch one of those webinars that are online. There's application period opened up on January 17th. Your applications are due April 5th. And then what we do, so there's a meet across the state for just about every region. I serve the 10 counties here in the Northeast. So regional advisors work with our municipal partners, our local nonprofits to help you develop the best application. We are highly competitive and we're highly competitive amongst our regions. We fight with each other a lot. But we review and rank them all summer long. So this is done on a competitive scoring process. We normally have anywhere between 80 and 90 million that we can allocate for various projects across the state. So this is what we'll be doing all summer long. We normally announce in the fall, although many of you have probably heard me say soon once September starts coming up. One time we didn't announce until January, I think it was. So it had everybody on their toes. And then these are projects, if you're applying for them now, these are projects you're not starting until the spring of 2024. So this is where our funding, these are a number of our funding sources. Our primary source is the Keystone Fund. And then we also get money from Growing Greener, which is also known as the Environmental Stewardship Fund. The Land and Water Conservation Fund is our federal program. And then we also have the Federal Recreational Trails, the Snowmobile Restricted Account, and the PA ATV Restricted Account. So these are our priorities. Every year we set priorities for our applications and hopefully score within those priorities. For 2023, these priorities are based upon a statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, also known as SCORP. There's one of our acronyms. We are looking at community parks and recreation. Our top priority is rehabilitation of older parks. Also the development of new parks that meet our high and medium need areas within the state. We're looking at land conservation, watershed protection, so protecting critical lands, looking at habitat, looking at forested watersheds, and then connections between public or conserved land. We have our watershed restoration, rivers implementation, so working with our partners to enhance public access to Pennsylvania's waterways, looking to improve our watersheds, and then also doing some community tree planting and repairing forest buffers, which also known as a planting along a stream or a river. Trails, our priority has been over the past several years, closing our priority trail gaps. Give you an example of a priority trail gap that was here in the Northeast, the southern portion of the Northeast. But the Jim Thorpe pedestrian bridge, if you're familiar with the D&L trail that goes from, we say Wilkes-Barre down to Bristol. If you're down south, they say Bristol to Wilkes-Barre, but we all know it's Wilkes-Barre to Bristol. It was a gap over the Lehigh River in Jim Thorpe, and now we have a pedestrian bridge thanks to funding partners with DCNR, PennDOT, DCD. I think just about every level of state funding was involved in that pedestrian bridge. But closing priority trail gaps is one of our priorities for 2023 in this grant season. And then we talk about recreation all for all. I touched on the high and medium need. So we had a mapping project that was done with the Trust for Public Land and We Conserve Pennsylvania, which is our statewide nonprofit organization for land trust. And we looked at high and medium needs areas across the state. Where are we missing parks? Where can't we meet that 10-minute walk to a park or a 10-minute walk to a trail? So we look at that, and there's a mapping exercise if you're applying for a grant that we ask you to do. And then we're also looking to serve underserved population areas. So who are eligible applicants? Municipalities, municipal nonprofit organizations, pre-qualified land trusts, and some for-profit agencies, enterprises, excuse me. So municipalities, simple counties, townships, boroughs, municipal agencies could be a council of government or a recreation authority, something that was established by an intergovernmental agreement. Nonprofit organizations, this needs to be a 501c3 nonprofit and registered with the Bureau of Charitable Organizations. You'll probably hear that repeated over and over again because our funding helps fund some of these mini grant programs you'll be hearing about. So we require it, they require it. So if you're upset with Kane and Janet Sweeney for asking for all this information when you apply for a mini grant, it's because of us. Pre-qualified land trust, you do not, this question came up at our last presentation. You have to be a pre-qualified land trust, which is a form that we do in-house, and you have to be established for over 5 years. You do not have to be land trust accredited. There's a larger LTA accreditation process for land trust, but you do not have to be LTA accredited to receive our funds for acquisitions. And then, as we said, for-profit enterprises, this is our rec trails, snowmobiles to have some applications from for-profit businesses, enterprises. So matching funds, everything we do, we look at some type of matching fund. So normally it is a 50-50 match or dollar for dollar. We look for secured matching funds. We are, like I said, highly competitive. There's a scoring process that goes with it. I'm not going to discuss the scoring process today. That's discussed larger on our webinars. But matching funds is one of those key components that you need to have to get what we call your ready to go points. You cannot spend any match. You'll hear that again over and over today. Anything that you're telling us is match has to wait during the grant period. So if you have money now, you can't spend it until next year when the grant is awarded. If you have someone donating services or donating materials, things have to happen within the grant period. So you can't do any work either until the grant period has been announced. So cash is our favorite. Everybody likes cash. It's the easiest. We look at most federal funds, some state funds, most local funds, most private funds, and non-cash with in-house labor, equipment use, donations, and volunteers. One thing that you'll hear, again, this is probably a theme. We try to get creative. As I mentioned, the Jim Thorpe Bridge, they used our funding to do design. They used PennDOT funding to do construction. In some cases, we use DCD funding to do construction. So you have partners here in the room that if you're thinking of a project and you want to kind of think outside the box, definitely talk to myself, April Hannon, Paul McNoskey, Janet Sweeney, even Kane through the mini grant program. There's things that we can make happen, and we talk to each other. Sometimes some of our partners don't realize that, but we do talk to each other, and we try to get the best application and get you the best project you can. In some cases, we can get you projects done with all state funding and maybe just a little bit of municipal cash. So this is our homepage. This is where you can find it. We use the leaf. I don't know why we just didn't do the dollar sign. Everybody understands the dollar sign when we have grants, but that's where you can find our grant program. As I said, there's a me across the state. We have 6 regions, several regional advisors across the state. If you're doing a project that's up in that kind of goldish area, that's me. I serve, like I said, 4 counties of the Endless Mountains Heritage Area, and then some of the other counties within what we call a conservation landscape. So the types of projects we fund, planning projects. So if you're looking to, you have a vacant piece of property in your municipality and you're looking to develop it as a park, we'd like to see a plan done so we can help you fund those plans. We just recently did a master site plan for a couple of our municipalities. We're building brand new parks. So this actually lays the framework for you We can look at swimming pool complex feasibility studies. If you have a pool and you're looking to rehabilitate the pool, you need to do that feasibility study. You can't just come to us for funds to fix the pool. There's a whole process that goes along with, you know, pool studies and rehab of older pools. Same thing with the indoor recreation facilities. If you're interested in building up this study done. We also do comprehensive open space and greenway plans. We worked with Wyoming County on their open space and greenways plan that we finished about 2 years ago now, right? 2 years now.
Yeah, it's 2 years.
And then we also did Sullivan County's open space and greenways plan. And I think we funded in the past a regional open space and greenway plans for the 4 counties. Acquisition. So these are mostly our nonprofit local land trusts are doing acquisition projects. They are looking at acquiring lands for critical habitat and or natural areas, park and recreation areas. That's normally our municipalities looking to acquire land either to develop a new park or add on to a park. And then some areas where we're acquiring for greenways and open space. And then we can help you secure land either through what we call fee simple acquisition, which means you're buying the land. The organization, the municipality, they're buying the land, or we do permanent easements, also known as conservation easements, where the landowner remains the property, but certain rights are severed from the property. We can help you with those acquisitions. And then trails, as I indicated, there are a couple different types of trail opportunities: motorized, non-motorized, ATV, snowmobile. We look at, again, kind of the whole gamut that's under our larger program fits within our trails. We end up calling the categories, we end up calling them swim lanes. We can do trail projects that require planning, acquisition, development, and some equipment purchases. This has become difficult now with the Buy America program. Some of our equipment purchases haven't been able to happen as they have in the past. We do educational programs. And then, as I said, we do our grant program normally once a year. If you're familiar with our program, we did have a fall application period this last fall. It was not something we normally do. It was due to the American Rescue dollars that we received. So we developed a fall application program. I more than likely won't see that application program in the fall happen again. I think I used this joke the last time. I'll be on the train to Stroudsburg and then to New York before we do a fall application. But there is the ATV and snowmobile account because of the funds and the way the legislation is written. That is an application or a program that we do receive or accept applications 2 times a year, normally in the spring with our normal round, and then the fall, there's also an application period. But that's the only one that does that, and that's because of the ATV legislation. And then development, helping you build new playgrounds, helping you build a skate park, looking at new sports fields or some type of court. Everybody nowadays is building pickleball courts. How many people have been asked to build a pickleball court? Everybody wants pickleball. They love pickleball. Swimming pools, if you've done your feasibility study through the planning, we will help you, build your swimming pool or rehab your swimming pool. And then we look at pavilions and some indoor recreation facilities. That's our average grant request form. Is usually between 100,000 and 250,000. That would be the grant request. So if you're requesting 250, you have a project of at least $500,000. Those grant requests have been different over the past couple of years due to our level of funding that we've been able to spend. We have done some projects that are larger than that. So if you have a project that is outside that grant range, please don't be afraid to talk to us about it, because there are plenty of ways we can figure out how to do it. Again, matching funds from the state, looking at other organizations to see where those dollars can come from. Rivers conservation, we look at, projects that help implement our river conservation planning and water trail enhancement, working with our partners that manage the water trails across the state. Definitely public access. We're seeing an increase in public access along the rivers and streams, and we're really fortunate to be able to fund those projects. And then again, we've talked about the riparian buffer installation. This is new. It was primarily our riparian buffer program before. We renamed it to what we call our community watershed forestry. So this is lawn conversion project. So if a land trust owns a 100-acre property, or a municipality, that's a better example. A municipality owns a 100-acre park, and they're cutting the grass on the entire 100 acres, and it takes a long time to cut that grass and have the staff mow it every other day in the summertime. We're actually doing lawn conversion projects where we're asking municipalities and their parks to convert that lawn into meadow. So cutting the grass every other day. So we have that. If you're familiar with our Tree Vitalize program, that was a separate entity that managed that at one point in time. We are now managing the Tree Vitalize program. So that's, you know, your tree plantings along the streets. So if you're interested in the Tree Vitalize program, we can help you with that. And then we're looking again, landowner outreach. These are similar categories that you've probably heard me repeat through this presentation. Materials and labor, site preparation, tree tender programs. We do look for, you know, we have some organizations that are doing projects on private properties or other entities. We do look for landowner agreements, and that's something we could talk through the process. State and regional partnerships. So that's when we look to work with our organizations, such as our heritage areas and our conservation landscapes. There are 12 heritage areas across the state. Region receives most of its funding through our partnership grant program. Same with our conservation landscapes. We have conservation landscapes throughout the state. And again, that's a partnership program that we help build capacity at the level so our partners can help implement our recommendations. We do special purpose studies, implementation projects, and as Kane is going to tell you, and Janet Sweeney, who is our external lead for our Pocono Forest and Waters Conservation Landscape, they manage a mini grant program that's funded for us. So that's why I said anything they say they need is because we said they need. We also tried to do projects that build local capacity. So we have our peer program and our circuit rider program. Some of this you may see when we're doing larger recreation commissions, recreation authorities. That was established through what we call a peer program. And then the circuit rider usually helps you pay for an executive director with a period of like 4 or 5 years where, you know, we start to fund it and then we decrease the funding every year until the authority is paying for that person on their own. So again, these are all our online resources that I mentioned earlier. Our tutorials for all of our programs are online. We do have our statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan online, our grants portal, and the homepage as far as looking at different options as far as how you answer the criteria questions. And then just to review, our biggest thing that you should get out of this is if you're thinking of a project for the larger DCNR program, it's never too early to start, even though it's April now. If you're thinking of a project for next year, it's a good time to start talking about them because they do take a while. Budgets have to be done. We know your municipal supervisors have to figure out how they're going to put matching funds in the budget. So if you're not thinking of something this round, but maybe next round, never too early to start. And then April 5th is our deadline for this year. And Kane, are we going to hold up on questions till the end?
I think some questions now, Christine, and I'll see if I can get the chat pulled up to see if there's any questions on there. But any questions for Christine?
Anyone considering an application or that I have met with you already? I recognize a few faces. Yes.
Got a question. We have a walking trail and a field already, and we were looking at possibly putting a building to do programs in. Would that come under DCNR?
We would look at the building. You would have to do what we call a feasibility study. So first, that planning category would have to be met first, where you would do a plan to discuss what is the feasibility of building that building. All state agencies want to make sure that you have the resources that if you're going to build something, that you're able to maintain it. So what the feasibility study would help you do is first find out, is the location feasible? And then what is the support that you need? And do you have the dollars to support that facility over the years, over the long term? So once you have that feasibility study done and you find out, yes, we can do, you know, all the things that we say we want to do with this building, then you can come to us to look for funding to help you build that complex. We can also do capacity studies, you know, looking at whether or not how you're going to staff it through what we call a peer circuit rider, but that's something we can discuss further. I'll make sure to give you my part.
Now, I'll be stupid. Feasibility studies.
Yes.
How do you even start with that? This is all new territory.
Yeah, we can discuss that. So there's a process to apply for that grant and get a consultant on board that would help you do that feasibility study.
Okay,
That
so
would- yeah,
there's
you
someone
bring a
that-
professional in, a landscape architect, an engineering firm that would help you do that study. You wouldn't be doing that on your own. You would be requesting funds from us to help you do that study.
And who pays for that?
We pay for half and you pay for half. So that's a 50-50 grant program. So dollar for dollar match. So if the study, you find out, usually what you do is you get cost estimates, and if the study, they say it costs $60,000, you have to have 30, and 30 you'd come from.
Yeah.
Oh, it's up on the screen.
Yeah, indeed.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. So, next up, we have Paul McDoskey from the Department of Community and Economic Development. Paul, we're going to try and make sure, apparently on the screen, on the Zoom, the slides weren't progressing. So I want to let everyone know on the Zoom call that we will be sending out the slideshows after the great workshop, likely within the next few days. But we're going to see if we can try and remedy that right now. But hang on one second, Walter. You said open it up first and then share it?
Yeah.
All right. We'll see.
It hurts.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Kim. Thank you, Savannah, for all your work getting everything together, and everybody, really appreciate it. My name is Paul McDoskey. I'm the Regional Director for the Department of Community and, oh, sorry, I didn't take that out of your way. Sorry. Yes, I'm the Regional Director for the Department of Community and Economic Development. I have 13 counties in the Northeast, so I cover all the northern tier from Tioga to Susquehanna and Pike County. So I met a lot of you before, and I thank Christine for a lot of the things she did for me to make sure I understand who we're talking to. We already know we have municipalities, we have nonprofits, and we have other folks that may interact with DCD programming. Where Christine is focused on several programs and a high quality, as you can see by our presentation, very high quality. We're going to fill you with quantity. We have DCD has a multitude of programs for community and economic development. So I'm not going to get into all that. I want to focus more on the grant opportunities that exist, but I do also want to make sure that you're aware, especially those who are representing municipalities. We also have services that are specific to municipal government. So we have our strategic management program, where we come in and we help municipalities with operational support, and we bring in consultants to give you best practices and discuss things and face challenges that we see in the more than 2,500 municipalities that we have across the Commonwealth. So those services are there through our local government services team, and they're here to support you any way they can. We also have, and Christine also mentioned the support that we have using our partners. So we have partners all over the Commonwealth. On the economic development side, our PREP network, which is our partner for regional economic performance. You're going to hear from the Northern Tier. I'm sure they'll talk to you a little bit about some of the things they do on the grant side. But we also do support through our PREP partners, business lending, our PETA loan programs, and some other support to local businesses. So if you have business interests that have needs, or they're looking for funding or help, there is not a lot in the way of grants, but we do have access to low interest loan programs, and they are very useful when coordinating expansion efforts for businesses. So they can make the capital stack, if you will, to expansion or, new machinery and equipment more palatable and make it a little bit easier for the businesses. So those things exist as well. And you can always contact me directly and I can put you on the right path, or you can reach out to our network of partners. So this way, there we go. So getting back into the grant side of things, I did mention we have a wide range of programs, but the overarching need and one of the requirements, and again, Christine talked about this with feasibility studies, is the planning process and making sure that whatever project that you're doing comes from some element of planning. It doesn't necessarily have to be a specific project plan, but generally we're looking at plans. They could be full strategic plans for your neighborhoods. They could be, countywide plans, but we want to make sure that there's been some thought and some community interaction in ensuring that, the project is well-founded and will be accepted by the community. So that's an important part. And as I mentioned, it doesn't really have to be project specific. It could be part of a broader plan that you might have for a neighborhood revitalization effort or things like that. So they always, there is actually, and sorry about that. You'll notice that on the application, those of you, and we'll talk a little bit about the applications, but there are requirements when you're submitting applications on the single application. There is a place to say, is this part of a plan? And there are metrics that we use when we're evaluating applications, and that gets you generally extra points for having it as part of it. So that's very important. There are several funding types that exist. We're talking about grants, but that's not the only way that you can help folks. I mentioned that there are loans and loan guarantees for businesses, and that bonds as well, and all on that side. But on the side of direct tax are pretty self-explanatory, and tax credits are ways that nonprofits especially can leverage their contributions and offer your funders another source, another way to leverage that dollar. So in other words, if we're giving a 75% tax credit to a business to make a contribution to a project, if they were going to give you $10,000, they can now give you $40,000 for the same cost to that. So that it's very effective and it's a great way to leverage and bring in more people into the process. So, and one of the most important things when you get through, as I mentioned, and this is, I'm going to sort of say this a lot, but it's really important. Because we have such a wide range, it's very difficult for me to go into any specific grant. I will be happy to sit down and talk with anyone about a specific grant, but there are fundamental things that are consistent. And the most important thing within DCED's programming is our guidelines. The guidelines ultimately tell you what's necessary to be part of the application, who can apply, what you can apply for, and any other provisions that are necessary to be able to successfully submit the grant application. So you'll find on our website the windows that exist and all the rules on those guidelines. And again, we're always here to help decipher those things. The single application is our conduit, and it's becoming more broadly used throughout the Commonwealth. Most of you who have interacted with grants or any kind of work with the Commonwealth will use the single application, and this includes our partners or municipal partners when they apply for their particular, for example, all the ARPA dollars that went to, or CDBG money that goes to. All those things, the single application is sort of our conduit. So getting an understanding, getting a Keystone login is very important, and it's all really, this is the first page that gets you through it. Most of you, as I mentioned, probably have done this before. If you get to this point, you have challenges, certainly give us a call. And there's another point, another important reality of DCED funding that I want to really make sure you all are aware of. And those of you who have heard me before, you certainly heard me say this. It's who decides who gets the money. We have our legislative branch, the executive branch, working back and forth, trying to decide how much money, where it's going to go. Well, the programs that we administer are not all directly directed through the executive branch. Some of those go through what's called the Commonwealth Financing Authority. The Commonwealth Financing Authority is an authority that was created by the legislature a couple of decades ago to help distribute resources from the Commonwealth. It consists of the 4 caucuses of the legislature and 3 representatives of the executive branch. The key piece to this authority is that they have to have unanimous support for any dollars that go through this authority. It has to be unanimous. So right away, if you're thinking you have to get the legislature and the executive branch on the same page, you can see where that can become a challenge from time to time. So I get a lot of calls on programmings asking, when is this going to come? When are these going to be approved? We operate under the direction of the CFA for those purposes. So currently the CFA is scheduled to meet on the 16th. They have not met in several months. So some of the programs that would have been announced, like the statewide LSA, which I talked about here last year, we still have not distributed that money. We're waiting for the CFA to come. We've done our work from the agency standpoint, and we hope that on the 16th, we will see that money distributed from the CFA. And that just talks a bit about the structure of the CFA. Under the Commonwealth Financing Authority, they have a list of, and if you go to our website, again, dcd.pa.gov, and that'll be up there later. I'm sure Ken will share this with everybody. You'll see our website. If you just type in on the Google machine, DCED CFA, it will bring you to the CFA's website. Specifically there, you can find this information and the programs that fall under the CFA. But just to go through some of them and where they might apply to what you folks do. Act 13 is the Marcellus Shale legacy dollars. So the money that comes from the impact fees that does not go to the county comes to the Commonwealth and is distributed under Act 13. It's the law that approves this distribution. So there are, and I'll go through the specific programs under Act 13 because there's a list that fall into that. Alternative clear energy, business in our sites, and those first 3 are obviously economic development focused. Therefore, business expansion, business parks, and those type of things on the business side. The multimodal transportation fund is one that many of you may use and the municipalities use. This can be used for streetscapes. It can be used in part. We've used this in partnership with DCNR before for trail projects. So this is a very useful program. It does require a match currently. They did waive it in the past, but currently it is requiring a match. That's a very good program for streetscape type work and things that you're doing in your community. And then the pipeline investment program is to that last mile of gas lines that can help bring natural gas to a community. Tunkhannock received a pipe grant a few years ago to expand natural gas in the borough here as well. So under the Act 13 dollars, as I mentioned, there's some particular programming here that is funded specifically through those dollars, and they're pretty self-explanatory. The abandoned mine drainage, water quality, flood mitigation. The ones that I really want to look at here are the greenways, trails, and recreation, because that's most likely something that is a broader use across municipal and nonprofit users, if you will. We do partner with this program a lot with Christine to look for opportunities to provide match in some cases. This is a great time to sort of give you a hierarchy of what's eligible under a match and what you can use to match other programs. And the basic rule is this: if the money is in the general fund and it's the source of the grant, like the multimodal fund, comes from the general fund, they put money in. That money cannot be used to match other state dollars. However, if the money comes from fees, then that money can be used to match other state programs. So the Marcellus Shale Act 13 programs, they come from fees from Marcellus Shale, so they can be used to match other state programs. So that's something when we're looking at the, trying to put a larger project together, and you might only have $50,000 or $100,000 eligible in one program, but you have $1.5 million project, we match these together and we try and build stacks to get you to where you're trying to get to. So the other ones are, like I said, are pretty self-explanatory. The window is currently open. This is a window of that the CFA set, and I want to see if I did. Okay, we did, but it's the open. Okay, so as I said, they're pretty straightforward. I'll go down to here. This, unfortunately, I didn't get my update in here. I apologize. If you go to our website, there is a little noticeable change to these timelines, and to the right of some of the dates, you'll see annual. So the CFA has to approve every year the existence of the window and the program itself. There are some programs, and it's probably a function of the fact that over the years, there's been some challenges getting the meeting to actually occur. They decided to allow applications for certain programs annually. So the LSA programs and several of the other programs, they'll come no matter what, even if the CFA does not meet. The example to use how that can go the wrong way is under the statewide LSA. That money is there, but we're still waiting for the CFA to meet to give us the specific new guidelines and the timeline that they'll accept applications. So again, hopefully on March 16th, we'll get an answers to some of these questions. But if you go to our website, there's an updated, the CFA website has this updated and also lists all the programs that fall under the CFA. So statewide LSA, I did mention that's a new one, and that's important because unfortunately for many communities, they weren't eligible for the gaming dollars under a direct grant program. Each casino has its own rules. So, for example, the Luzerne County Casino, all the money from that casino stays in Luzerne County. The Monroe County Casino, a portion stays in Monroe County, and another portion gets distributed to the 5 contiguous counties. Well, it doesn't do anything if you're in Bradford or Wyoming County or Sullivan counties. You didn't have access to LSA. Well, when the legislature expanded gaming to include those machines that you see at every convenience store now, and somebody's always I'm stunned at how much money goes into these things. But we did have $130 million last year through the statewide LSA, which is now open to all 67 counties. So anybody can apply, and they also opened it up to nonprofits. So that's a little bit easier because now you can apply. You used to have to go through municipalities, and sometimes that can be challenging if the municipality is submitting their own application. There would always be a belief that they're gonna, sort of crowd out their application if they let somebody come in and apply under their name. That's not the case, but you can't overcome that sometimes. Now it expands who can apply, and it gives us a little bit more opportunity to apply. And the eligible organizations here are counties, municipalities, municipal authorities, economic development agencies, and redevelopment authorities. And they can apply on the behalf of other entities that have eligible projects. So that's the CFA, and that's the money that goes through the legislative process to the extent the legislators are involved in the decision making. We do have internal community development programs that exist. And so that would be under the discretion of Governor Shapiro. And now Rick Seiler is our acting secretary for DCED. I believe they'll probably in May of some time go through the approvals, but right now Secretary Seiler is getting familiarized with a very, very deep agency, and we're excited to have him on board. But the programs that go through our agency directly are the Municipal Assistance Program, Keystone Communities, and the Neighborhood Assistance Program. That's not all of them, but they're the ones that focus on community development at some point. Governor Shapiro did put in a request to increase both municipal assistance and Keystone Communities, and to ask for an increase in funding of both programs. The Keystone Communities is especially valuable because of its broad scope and what can be funded under. So we're hoping that we'll see that increase, and it'll give a lot of communities an opportunity to apply for your community development projects. And this goes from parks to, to trails and all those other things that you're doing in your communities that you're looking sometimes at DCNR. This dollar increase would give us a lot more ability to fund some of these projects. The municipal assistance program ties back a little bit more to what I talked earlier about with our municipal government support. So where we have our strategic management team come in and do evaluations of your operations. This is where we fund that. We also fund Act 47 under this. So some of this money will go towards Act 47 communities. So it's a good program that's generally targeted more towards municipalities. Our neighborhood assistance program is a little bit unique, and we'll go into that a little bit more going forward. But this is, again, the municipal assistance program and our Keystone communities that exist, and then some of the activities that exist under Keystone communities. Now, I say this because the Route 6 Alliance has a facade grant program that's been used all across Route 6. They're in Lackawanna County now, but they've come through Tunkhannock and Bradford County, and they do a good job of utilizing. They use our facade program to do facades along the Route 6 corridor. So some things that you can use through that. Okay. Accessible housing development grants are also some of the other things. There's, again, it's very broad based. So if you have questions, give me a call and we'll get you set up on what we can do. That's the eligibility for the Keystone Communities program. But I do want to get into the neighborhood assistance program a little bit more. So the municipal assistance program is a tax credit program. And effectively what we're doing here is we're leveraging charitable giving because the recipient has to be a 501c3. So we worked with Gina at the chamber and their nonprofit. We have several projects that we did here last year under the neighborhood assistance program. We brought private funding in to help them get these projects done, and they're community development related. They have to help an at-risk or distressed area. But so we would see this money in the past go to urban areas, and suburban areas much more. A few years ago, the legislature changed the provision and added what's called the rural initiatives. And that is one of the best things they've done for this program, because now that opens it up to any rural county. So now we can do, for example, in Sullivan County, we're working with the Loyal Sock Foundation on a community center that they're building in Sullivan County. Now, Sullivan County wouldn't have the density to do something like this on their own, but because of that rural initiatives, they're able to now do that. Similar initiative going on in Susquehanna County. So a company makes a contribution to a 501c3 nonprofit, and they get tax credits in return. The only requirement from, there's two major requirements. They have to be current on their taxes. We don't want any people who are not paying their taxes getting tax credits. So that's an important part of it. And also they have to obviously be a Pennsylvania stated company, so they have a liability in Pennsylvania. They don't necessarily have to, they have to have an obligation, not necessarily a liability, because you can transfer these credits. So if a business says, well, I really don't have a lot of tax credits, but I'd like to pay, give you some money here, they can transfer those credits to other entities as well. So it's a little bit into the weeds here. I don't want to get too deep on this, but it's a great program to use if you're a nonprofit. It will leverage what you're doing. In almost every case, what you're doing would be eligible under this program, so we can talk about it, see how we can develop a project for you. So some useful practices, and this is the single most important thing when you're dealing with CFA funding, and that's reach out to your legislators, because as I said, they're the ones that decide how this money is. It's not an executive branch function. You need to have support from your local legislators to get this funding. And it's a good practice to have them engaged. And it also is part of the broader community engagement that you're usually trying to do when you're doing projects. If you see an application, always reach out to us. Most of the ESA applications, on the application, they say, did you speak with somebody from TCD? If you're not checking that box, if you miss it, they understand you should know. check that box so they know we had conversations, so they know that we've been going through this. And really just consider this. 2,500 plus municipalities. I couldn't even tell you how many nonprofits exist. We get a lot of applications at the agency for a ton of different programs. And we might have 10 analysts reviewing 500 applications for any given program. Well, in that case, that analyst may not be familiar with the specifics of your community, right? So they're trusting us to give guidance to you. So when they see these applications come through, they know that they're solid application and they can really look through them. So when you check that box, it gives them confidence that you've had a discussion with your regional people at DCD or program people, and that you get a clear understanding of what the application requires. And planning. It's extremely important that you have a plan so we know what you're doing and its viability, but also that you have community support. That we don't want, there's not as much money as there used to be going through the agency for community or economic development. So it's much more difficult to get these grants. So having a plan in place just gives you a little bit extra behind your application, and it really helps. And that is part of building community support. You do that through your plan. And then research what works. And this comes in discussions with us. I do this a lot with the Neighborhood Assistance Program and our other nonprofits, because generally you're going to come to me and it's going to be something somebody did before. So we can go and we can take a look at their application. We can have a conversation with those people. Most of the nonprofits, you folks that are with nonprofits know this, you collaborate a ton. You're not successful without collaboration and partnership. So most of these organizations are more than willing to have a discussion, tell you what they did, how it worked, all the projects working. So those things are great too. So research what works. And that's pretty much the bulk of what I have right now. As I mentioned, you can always get on our website, which is not up there, so you won't be able to find it. But it is dcd.pa.gov. That's my email and my telephone number. And I'm always willing to have discussions and problem solve with any of you folks.
All right, you mentioned the gaming funds. Can you give us some examples of what types of grants have been applied for and gotten with the gaming fund?
Yeah, the list would be very long because, quite frankly, the scope is wide. So
that's fine.
yes, so I'll tell you this, and I tease so close. We have the nicest fleet of police cars in the country because we do fund a lot of municipal buildings, those things, but also community projects part. In some cases, there have been partnerships created for business assistance, but generally it's community development, parks, recreations, municipal services, because especially in the Northeast with the Luzerne and Monroe, the municipality has to be an applicant, so as such they are always applying. And then when a non, really a lot of municipal things, but it's open and it's broad based, and it really just has to be in community interest is the criteria. So it's very broad.
So I haven't seen prevention type grants in community, prevention, especially, from dealing with gaming and.
So not specifically that there is money set aside from the gaming dollars, and you see that all the time.
I didn't know if this side was another.
I have not seen any municipal or direct applicants for any work like that, but I imagine it certainly would be element for sure. And interestingly enough, that's where you might be able to bring in the neighborhood assistance program. If you have a nonprofit that's dealing with that issue, that would be an at-risk population that you could help with the neighborhood assistance program.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
No questions on here that I can see.
Great.
Well, thank you again, Kane. Thank you all for being here, and Savannah and the Dietrich Theater. Thank you for hosting this. I was important to come here, so thanks.
Thanks very much, Paul. Appreciate it. So we are still trying to figure out the slide situation for our Zoom participants, but we are going to email the upcoming presentations to them now. That way they can kind of follow along as we move through the program. So want to thank the Dietrich Theater for having us today and hosting us. Even if we really love supporting us, they're a great heritage partner of ours and have been for many years. So we really appreciate their support. Next, we have Robin Cummings from the Bradford County Tourism Promotion Agency to talk about their room tax grant program. Robin does not have a presentation, so we're going to get all those emailed out before.
You don't like technology,
No, I do not.
and is everyone good? Do you feel like you need to stretch or work it out a little bit? I'm pleased to say that the room tax grant program for Bradford County is relatively easy and quite specific. I feel like sometimes, and no offense to Paul or Christine, but there's so much money that's available that you can get bogged down. And the goal of a grant is to be able to really help, as opposed to having people feel scared at what a grant is or the work that it contains, or it's so specific. Both Jean and myself with the tourism bureaus, our goal is to make sure you get the money. And our objective is that we help you in any way we can, so that you have that in your hand to make sure that you're able to help promote tourism and bring people to your events, to your organizations, to your museums. And so our goal is to make it relatively as easy as possible, both in the application, but also in the review process. And I think that's why I really don't use any slides, because it is pretty much all on our websites a lot of the time, where we're able to help you prior to that opening period. Certainly can't write the application for you or help you, prior to that or after the deadline period. But the room tax grant program is for Bradford County is an annual grant. It opens in the fall. And so this year it will open, it's always the Tuesday after Labor Day. So September 5th, the room tax grant in Bradford County will open, and it closes 6 weeks later, which will be the close of business on October 13th. How the money is determined is of all the occupancy tax that's collected through the user of the hotel, 30% of that is given to the tourism promotion agency to fund our grant program. So last year it was about $127,000. So it can be variable each year based off of what the occupancy tax numbers are. But we're looking at some really strong figures already this year. So we're going to have a healthy amount of money that we can give back to our nonprofit organizations. So again, I represent Bradford County. So the room tax grant programs between both Jean and I are specific for our counties. While Jean represents Wyoming, Sullivan, and Susquehanna counties, you will apply for the room tax grant through Jean's organization. For Bradford County, you will apply to the Bradford County location. And you can do that. We try to make it really easy and simple for you. We make the application as well as the overview, meaning who can apply, what are the requirements, available on our website at visitbradfordcounty.com. You'll be able to download both the overview as well as the application once that opens in the fall. So make sure you jot that down so that you can go to the website at that time. And we do a lot of public announcements to keep you aware of when that time is coming. We don't want you to miss out on it. So the room tax grant, once applications are received in, it is a 5-person panel made up of my board members who knows tourism better than those that are working in the industry. So my 11-member board, 5 of those, including Kane being one, are the ones that review the applications. And so I just want to briefly touch on there are 3 categories that we specifically really look at funding. And the first is naturally it's for your event. That's for advertising for your event. I tend to use Troy Fair as my example for a lot of things because it is the largest event in Bradford County. They have a substantial budget. They have a lot of people that come to their area and attend the fair. However, there are certain things, you know, that they obviously need help on in advertising, as we know, whether you're a big event, small museum, or municipality, you need assistance with sharing the information. A lot of times your budgets are line itemed to be specific to your operations. And sometimes the advertising piece is a part that falls to the wayside, and we're really good at utilizing as nonprofits free resources. But let us help you for those that aren't free. So creating your special event and your advertising is a great way that you can utilize your tax dollars. The other is marketing and promotional. Maps, guides, wrap cards, billboards, all those types of advertising methods are fantastic with the room tax grant. You know, the goal is when you're putting on an event or you're advertising your event, the goal is that you bring people to the area. We are a promotion agency. We do promote all the things that are happening in our county. So it's good that those dollars that are collected from that are used back. So there are requirements that when you use those dollars, you distribute beyond a 50-mile radius, because the goal is to bring people here. We like to support our local businesses, but our economies grow when we bring outside dollars in. So you want to make sure that those methods in your application are extended beyond a 50-mile radius. And then the third category as well is for wayfinding aids. It's really great to be able to go to amazing museums and events. It's really troublesome if there's no signs to help you get there. And a lot of our great assets here in a rural area are not right in our downtowns. So having signage that directs people off of highways or through some more rural communities is another room tax grant category that we will fund, that we like to fund. We want to bring people to your location. So who can apply? Our room tax grant is open to 501c3 and C6 organizations, as well as municipalities, branches of government. So sometimes we will have some townships that will apply specifically. A lot of times it tends to be more for the wayfinding. It takes a lot sometimes to work through PennDOT. It takes a lot of cost. And so we're happy to be able to offset some of that as well. There are some things that we cannot fund. And if you happen to have that in your application, we won't decline the entire application. We will simply remove that piece from the application. So we cannot fund anything that's sectarious or religious expenses, and we cannot fund food, refreshments, travel, entertainment, or your operations. So I can't pay someone's salary. I can help them with their website. But another thing that we get asked questions for is, well, we have our budget already for our advertising, but we need help bringing the performer in. I cannot fund Troy Bear's concert, but I tell them, adjust your budgets where we can help you, because that is a requirement of the application, is submitting your budget and your financials. So redirect some of those line items to the things that you don't have covered so that we can help you, and then open up your line item for advertising where we can be able to assist. And we are, like I said, we're able to help with all of that. So please don't ever hesitate to call when the grant cycle is open. Legislation was passed back in 2016, requiring a 25% match for that of the money which you're asking. So if your application is for $10,000, $2,500 of that does need to be shown as either a cash match or an in-kind. There can be some confusion there what in-kind means. Normally in-kind could be anything about, a lot of our organizations work off volunteers. It could be the hours that they contribute. It could be if you get a decrease in something that you would normally pay for. So if you have professional services that they have given you a reduced amount for you to pay, as opposed to what being a nonprofit perhaps, that would be considered, that difference would be considered an in-kind amount. So a lot of times you can assimilate what a volunteer's hours would be normally if you had to pay for that professional service. That can be used as your in-kind match. And then I would think that one of the things that I think we see most frequently with the grant applications is everything is line item for you, but there are common things that we've seen over the past 8 years of running the grant program in Bradford County are minor mistakes. And so I just wanted to give a few tips as I close here of what we've seen happen in grant applications, so it doesn't happen again. The first one I think is always make a copy of the grant application that you're submitting. You want to be able to have that reference back, and if it gets submitted and approved, you're going to have a great reference point to start off the next year. So always make a copy of your grant application. And I want to remind you, a grant is a supplement to what you're already doing. If for some reason your grant is not funded or fully funded, because most grants are not fully funded, your project should be able to go on regardless. This should be a help, a benefit to help move it forward and some of the additional goals that you have for your organization. So the hope would be that if for some reason something is not there and it's declined, you're still able to move your event, your organization forward. The second thing would be, we look at grant applications a lot. You guys look at them a lot. You submit a lot of grant applications all the time for your organizations. Have someone double check your application. There's nothing worse than doing it and working so hard at a grant application, getting it turned in, and then realizing a whole piece was missing. Because for our organization, complete applications only will be reviewed. So if you're missing pieces, we can't fund it, we can't review it. So you want to make sure that we do include a checklist at the end of the application, so you can go back and check off what you've done, but it's seemingly sometimes interesting how organizations still submit them even with a checklist and it's still not complete. So please just do your due diligence, have another fresh set of eyes on that. I would say don't procrastinate. The grant round is open for 6 weeks. It is highly noticeable when a grant application is turned in to those that have really spent time with their details, linking it back to tourism, making sure every piece is there, bragging about their organization. These grants are competitive. We only have so much money, and always the requests for grants seem to be that the amount requested is far higher than the amount that's available. So this is a great opportunity for your organization to really brag about what you're doing and show your programming and your planning for it. And the final thing I would say is read the instructions. We want you to have the money. So all the instructions are right on the overview as well as the application. We have tips in there. We have check sheets for you to mark off that everything's there. So please make sure that you're utilizing that. And again, I think this is the biggest thing for most grants is you have to connect your grant back to the funding source. If the room tax grant is funded by tourism and occupancy of our hotels, and your grant says nothing about supporting tourism, building tourism, bringing people to our area, it is probably less likely to carry weight with the committee that it will be funded. So if you have questions about things like that, certainly let us know. We're both open to answering questions. We're not the members of the committee that make the decision, but so we can help you. But I would say that for any grant application is if it is not connected back to the funding source, they're going to look and go, well, why are they even applying for this to begin with? So if there are questions now, I'm happy to take them. Certainly King has my email address, and then I'm an office of one, so when I answer the phone, it's me you're talking to. So I'm happy to answer any questions now, or if you think of them later, feel free to shoot me an email as well. And Jean will probably come up and say, ditto. Last year I followed her, so I got to say, ditto. So, yes.
Are you affiliated with or connected to the Endless Mountains Visitors Bureau?
We are not. So Jean is the executive director of the Endless Mountains Visitors Bureau. She covers Susquehanna, Wyoming, and Sullivan counties. I am Bradford County specific. So I'm the director of our tourism promotion agency in Bradford County.
You effectively do the same thing for a single county.
For our single, that is correct. And there are some things that we partner on together as a region for our branding and for our impact that we can make against some more urban areas. And there are some things that because our counties are so large and specific, work better for us to do independently, so. But yes, our grant programs are very similar in what's able to be funded and what's not. I think Jean might have an additional piece of historic preservation in there that she may also be able to fund that we do not. But we are Bradford specific. And likewise, I get a lot of questions about that. Someone from Sullivan County or Wyoming County, and I just redirect them right to Jean. That was easy, huh? All right, ditto. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin, we really appreciate it. Round of applause for Robin, please. So I may have just figured it out. I may, so. All right, folks online, you know, be prepared. The slide may actually advance this time. All right, so now we have Jean Rupp from the Endless Mountains Visitors Bureau. The office is right here in Tunkhannock, just up the street. Jean has been working with the EHMR for many, many years, and she's doing a great job at the Visitors Bureau. So take it away, Jean. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I do have a slide presentation, but I will go through a lot of it very quickly. One of the differences between our organization and Bradford County organization is that we do not determine who gets the money. When I started with the Bureau, what our organization does is we review all of the grant applications. And our job is to make sure that those grant applications are in line with the legislation that governs them. So as long as they're in line with the legislation that governs them, then those grant applications go out to each of the individual counties who, Sullivan County has a room tax committee that reviews them. The other two counties, the county commissioners review them. They determine who gets funded and the amount that they get funded. We do not, and my board does not. We just make sure that they're in line with the legislation. So I'm gonna try to use this, and as I said, we'll go through. Yeah. No, let's see. Very dependent. Excuse me.
It was just the recording.
Okay. Once we get back our signed contracts and everything, our checks get mailed out. And then there is a final report that is due. That final report is due a year later, and January 31st of that following year. Okay, I'm gonna go over here. Okay, general conditions. When she talked about the grants having a 25% in-kind match, the current nationally hour value for volunteer hour is pretty high. It's $29.95. So that's the figure you can use. So if you have 100 hours of volunteer hours times $29.95, you're doing pretty good with your grant. The rest is, I don't want to keep repeating everything she said. Come on. There we go. There is the wording that needs to be put on all publicity and promotional materials, which is funded in part by the county room tax fund and the Endless Mountain Visitors Bureau. For Bradford County, it would be the same, but it would be the Bradford County Tourism and Promotion Agency. We want your events and the different projects you're doing to be linked to our website. We do have an events page on our website, so if you are getting funded, we ask that you put those events up on our website. Why can't I do this? The clicker is not, let's see. No. Okay. Here. There we go. The grant category, special events or exhibits. The one thing, like for exhibits, We actually, this past year, they funded the Penn State Cooperative Extension, who was doing a new planting up at the Wyoming County Fairgrounds of perennials. That is a permanent exhibit that's going to be up there with signage. So that actually qualified as a grant this year. And they did get funding. Marketing and promotional projects, that is going to be our biggest category. We want to get your events, your organization, any of those things out into the public. It has to be, as you said, beyond a 50-mile radius. And what we always say is we're trying to get heads in beds. I mean, that's what we do as an organization, but that's what you should also be doing if you do get this funding. Historical preservation, we do fund some of these projects. These are more difficult projects, and we don't have that much money that we're giving to that. You're much better off for these types of projects to be working with Kane, but our money, any of the money that you get from us can be a match towards his grant. Wayfinding, they include trail markers. We did trail markers down at Bosberg Neck before it became our state park here in Wyoming County. PennDOT signs, directional signage, interpretive signage. The sign that's outside here of the Dietrich Theater that shows different places. We work with the Heritage Region to help fund those types of signs. Great questions. This is something that a lot of people sort of skip sometimes on our application, and it's really important to answer this. This is basically going to just walk you right through the grant process. With the grant applications and these questions, we're not asking you to write a book. Very small answers, straight to the point is all that we're looking for. One of the things that we ask is how you're going to be evaluating its success. Are you keeping, if you're selling tickets, are you keeping the zip codes for the areas? Or if you're doing Facebook, are you capturing the analytics for that? These are things that will help you not only in your final report, but in next year's grant. If you say, last year we reached this many people, they came from this far away. When they're reviewing the grant applications, that's going to be very helpful.
I think the clicker's working now, Jim.
It is?
Yep.
Okay.
New battery. That's great.
Thank you very much. Okay. Supporting documentations, the annual budget. We say last year's audited financial statements or a copy of the 990. A lot of organizations are too small and they don't have this. If you don't have it, just a financial statement will do. But there's two different budgets. The second budget would be the budget that is for that project. One of the big mistakes we see with a project is that you may be asking for, say you're asking for $10,000, but then when you do the project budget, you have $2,000 written for advertising. They're going to look at that and say, well, if they're not planning on doing $10,000 worth of advertising, why should we help give them? So always put that figure just a little bit higher. In reality, you might, if you're asking for 10, you might not get 10, you may get 5, but you're going to be better off. Copy of your most recent 501c3 or C6 certification, board of directors, your marketing plan. Marketing plans are really important. They don't have to be something scary. If you've never done a marketing plan, give us a call, we can help you. Like Robin said, we're not looking for a lot of information, but if you can list some of the different areas that you're going to be targeting, especially with social media, those are all gonna be very helpful when they're reviewing it.
And it makes sense. How do you know how much you're asking for if you don't know where you're doing it and what the cost is?
Right.
Yeah.
Our final report, as I said, that's the wrong date of, it's gonna be for January 31st, 2025 for this year's grants. With that, you have to give us copies of the promotional materials. We're making sure that you're putting the correct funded in Part 5. And we're not crazy. If you're doing a very small ad, you don't have to put that in. That's gonna take up most of the ad. And we'll let that go by. But if you're doing a quarter page or a half a page, or you're doing a rack card or anything like that, you do need to have that funding on it. We need a copy of an invoice, and either with the check number and the date paid or the canceled check. And then a brief narrative of the event, including attendance numbers, website, social media, zip codes of attendance. All of this stuff is going to help for the next year also. Common mistakes. Didn't answer the questions. That we see a lot of time. Don't send the number of copies required. If you don't have a good marketing plan, you don't include the budget, or as I said, the budget doesn't reflect what the asking amount was. That's big also. Not listing ways that you're going to be working to get heads and beds. One of the easiest ways that you can do this as an organization is either put a link on your website to our website, or put an actual subcategory of area lodging on your website.
That can include campgrounds, correct?
That can include campgrounds, yep, it can include campgrounds, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, anything. Include past successes that you've had. With financial statements, what I hate to see is you have a financial statement and you have this big, large money, it's sitting in the bank, but it's earmarked for a special project. Put that on it as a footnote. We have like the Harvard Fair. They always have to have money in case they have a bad year, but then they also have some special projects. One year they were redoing their bleachers and they had a huge money. We got asked questions. Why should we be giving money to them when they have this much money? I gave them a call. It was easy, that if you could list those on the actual budget, that would be great. As I said, put local lodging partners on your website. If there's other events in the area on the same date, ask them to cross promote with you. This is a great way to get people around our counties. Use local media for public listings. Make sure you put that too in your marketing plan. If you're selling tickets, have an online app option to purchase. That's huge because you're able to reach a broader market. You're going to be getting that type of information can go down to, Philly, Harrisburg, people all over would be able to buy those tickets. Brochures, if you could get them at least at least 2 months prior, possibly 3 or 4 months prior would be even better. But we have brochure racks in 4 counties that we put them in. We make sure that the Welcome Center up on I-81 gets your brochures. We'll make sure we also have brochure racks, and we have televisions actually that just loop pictures from our area. Not only at the I-81 Welcome Center, but we also have them in Tioga County at their Welcome Center and up in the Poconos at I-84. So if you're giving us your brochures in advance, we can make sure that they're going to be in those locations also. Any questions? There's our contact information. Just to let you know too, there's been some questions in Susquehanna County. Things going back and forth. This year's grants in Susquehanna County are through the Endless Mountain Visitors Bureau, and hopefully moving forward, they still will be. There's nothing's a done deal. But if you have any questions, you can talk to me afterwards. My information is up there. Yes.
So you said that we should send brochures in early and you have 4 counties that you cover.
That we have brochure recs in, yes.
Does Robin or do you distribute it to those brochure racks in the 4 counties? Will you distribute it for a Bradford County event? Can Robin distribute it
Yeah,
to? 4
we'll work together on that. Our goal is to get all the information out to bring people to you. So a lot of times, we said, we're at similar meetings. Like today, she might say, hey, I've got this to go back to Bradford County, will you take it for me? And I'll absolutely.
Okay, but you would distribute brochures for a Bradford County event?
I would, and probably use Jean for points of interest.
Right.
And locations, and she may say, well, I'm gonna see you next week at Kane's meeting. Just give them to me, then I'll make sure they get out.
Okay, thank you.
What events are you
Oh,
doing?
you haven't yet?
Right,
What?
okay, you're thinking,
I'm doing this ahead of time.
great, yes, yes. And we do, you know, we have a free our membership is free, as is your membership. People outside of our counties, all we ask now is that they put an ad in our guide. And if they have an ad in our guide, they get all of our member benefits.
And what's that minimum cost or maximum cost?
$125 is the minimum. And that's an 1/8 of a page ad in our visitor's guide. In our visitor's guide, we do 100,000 copies.
Pretty cheap.
It's extremely cheap. It's less than a penny. Anyone else? Questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah. Trying to get excited over here.
Now I had a hard time standing up, so if you need to stand, let me know.
So, welcome Karen Arnold, from the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. She's going to be talking a little bit about the funding opportunities that they have for you. Hopefully, once again, these slides progress on the Zoom call. So thank you very much.
I'm so glad I got the memo. It looks like all of our presentations are using the same color palette. All very good. Well, hello, and thank you very much for including me in today's presentation. As Kane had introduced me, I'm with the State Historic Preservation Office, and we're housed in the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. We are a state agency. We are the only official state agency dealing with cultural and historical properties and history across the Commonwealth. I am the program, so we are a small but mighty program in comparison to my partners at DCNR and DCED. So I cover all 67 counties, but it's just very hard up here. And I'm having the same problem, Gene.
Aim it at the laptop here and see if that works.
Oh, I'm so happy it wasn't just me.
Not just you.
Thank you.
Well, let's see here.
I can pivot and just.
No, that's. There we go. First slide 2. Now see if it works. There you go. Just had to bump it into gear there.
Okay, so as I said, I'm a fairly small but mighty. We also receive our Recreation Park and Conservation Fund by Hawaii Partners and DCNR. Our allocation is much smaller, but over our last almost 30 years, we've provided 950 public grants and totaling over $47 million in grant funding. Our public grant for this most recent fiscal year was $2.5 million that we provided for public grants. And we provide 2 categories of support for that grant program. One are construction projects. They're actually capital projects at historical societies, museums, and other historic properties. And then much like DCNR, wanting to make sure you've got your planning in place, we do provide a category for planning and pre-development to make sure that you are addressing whatever issue at the historic property appropriately. We also have eligibility requirements. Our funding is mostly focused to nonprofit organizations, 501c3 organizations, and public agencies that own or support publicly accessible historic properties. We do support this county and local governments as well, funding a lot of county courthouses and city halls, as well as our friends at historical societies and historic sites. But our normal applicants are colleges and universities, conservancies, historic preservation organizations, historical societies and museums. And we do fund religious institutions, not necessarily furthering religious dogma, but because they are important historic properties, a lot, and especially in smaller communities as well. They are usually the most architecturally significant and doing a lot of community work as well. Who is not eligible for our grant program are other historic sites that are administered or associated with the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission, or state or federally funded or operated properties. And unfortunately, for-profit organizations and private individuals aren't eligible for our funding. I skipped over local governments, but of course they are eligible, as I mentioned before. Other eligibility requirements, if you're considering, if you're a self-fledgling or new organization, you are excluded from participating and applying to the grant program unless you're working with a fiscal sponsor who would be the applicant on your behalf. So let's say you're a brand new historical society, and you can certainly work with maybe a community foundation or another partner who would be the applicant on your behalf, who would help oversee the project, especially for larger capital projects. It's kind of helpful to have someone else who's partnering with you to make sure that the project can be completed. The whole point of our grant program is to make historic properties available to the public. So we do have operations and accessibility issues and questions for you. We want to make sure that your property is open at least 100 days per year. If you're a smaller museum, that's the weekend, Saturday and Sunday hours as well. It's a property that is not currently accessible because of condition. I see a lot of those. Maybe it's been vacant for the last 40 years and then there's holes in the roof that are structural issues. You're certainly welcome to apply, especially if the grant will allow you to actually have public programming in the property in the coming years after the completion of it. We do recognize that a lot of, especially in smaller historical societies, COVID has impacted a lot of your programming, and we are making some allowances for that 100-day years for the last couple of years as well. Other eligibility requirements, because we are dealing with historic properties, the property has to be listed in or eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. If you're not familiar with that odd term, that's the official list of any property that's deemed worthy of preservation. It's an high bar, but a lot of properties are actually probably already listed that you might even realize because they're part of a historic district. So if you're not sure, please reach out to me. I'm certainly happy to kind of do a little research for you to find out if that property already has that designation or what the steps may be so that you can become part of the National Register program. So that it doesn't need to be fully listed, it just needs to be determined eligible for listing. We do, as part of the State Historic Preservation Office, have a very large list of every property that's ever been determined for listing. It's part of our system, our PA share system. I provided a link here. It's a fun little thing if you ever wanted to look through to see what is known about historic properties in the county or your community. It's certainly publicly accessible and you can look at it as a guest profile. So, smaller part program is the planning project, and those grant awards are $5,000 to $25,000. They also require a $1 per dollar cash match. And then of course the capital projects are much larger because they cost more. And those requests are $5,000 to $100,000 and also require a cash match. They're reimbursable, so you do not get a direct award or a check coming right to you. And instead, as you assume expenses, you'd be applying either quarterly or more frequently if you need to for reimbursement. And again, much like the other speakers, you require to have contract invoices and proof of payment as well to receive your reimbursement. Again, just to make sure that everyone is aware, our construction category, the property needs to be listed in or eligible for listing in the National Register. It needs to be publicly accessible at least 100 days per year. And those grant awards are 5,000 to 100,000. They require a cash match. Because we are a state agency, do keep in mind that the project may be subject to the Pennsylvania Prevailing Wage Act, which may increase your labor costs. So as you're developing your project, make sure you're speaking to your contractors, that they're well versed in those programming and the requirements, and that they're paying according to that law. Those planning projects are, as a separate application, they are due on the exact same date, which is March 1st. We just missed the deadline for fiscal year 2022-2023, but this is a wonderful opportunity to keep in mind of what could be possible for next year. And the planning projects are a little different. They include a little bit more robust historic preservation projects. Let's say you're a historic property, you've got some structural issues, or you need to hire an architect who would come in and look at what is necessarily needed to bring that property back up in good repair. The planning project certainly allows you to do that. It allows you to have fund feasibility studies, what are known as historic structures report. Let's say you're operating a museum and you want to know how you're providing the correct interpretation at the property to your guests and visitors. You certainly could work with a museum professional or an architect to kind of do some of that necessary research to make sure you're correctly interpreting the property. We also fund design guidelines for local communities, just to make sure that you can share that with everyone within that community itself as good stewardship of how to maintain historic properties. They're very popular in lots of communities across Pennsylvania. Those that are, sometimes you hear of them as local historic districts or hard districts, they're helpful there. But there are a lot of opportunities for voluntary design guidelines too, if you just wanted to share that other property owners in your community are appropriately helping properties. I know someone else mentioned a facade easement or facade grant program that was happening. These are helpful in making sure that the people who are participating in those grant programs are actually correctly and appropriately maintaining the program. And as well, community preservation plans, which are sort of those similar historic preservation plans that might talk about, ways to increase visitorship coming in, how to interpret properties that are there, not necessarily developing historic walking tours, but looking at ways to make sure and identify for the local government what are the most character defining or important or significant properties in the community that really should make sure that are encouraging appropriate development at those locations. PHMC does have a number of funding priorities, much like our other speakers today. We like properties that are projects that are very visible. Let's say you're a historic house museum and you're talking about maybe restoring a kitchen in the back for staff use. That might not necessarily be as competitive in our grant program as something that would be more visible to a walker by saying that we recently funded a project where a tractor trailer took out the front porch. It wasn't covered by insurance to appropriately restore that, but that was certainly something that was eligible for grant program. Anyone walking by would see that magnificent porch, and it certainly made a great project for that organization as well. We do look at the significance of the historic property. We like historic properties, and they're all special in their own way, but certainly there are, so if you're able to articulate why your property is so important for your community and worthy of preservation, that's also something that we like to see as well. We do like preservation and restoration activities more so than adaptive reuse, or maybe ones that aren't as carefully thought out of the appropriateness of the historic property. And ones that for organizations that have a lot of public support and benefits. So if you do a lot of programming, we'd like to hear about how you share the importance of that historic property or your place with the community at large. It's a nice way to pull in a lot of the tourist promotion agencies that we've talked about as well. Just it's great to share that history with others who are visiting here. Much like the SCORP, we don't have such a fancy name, but we do a preservation plan, a strategic plan for all of Pennsylvania's historic activities. So all of our projects that we're funding have to somehow support that historic statewide historic preservation plan. I guess they could come up with maybe as an acronym, which isn't quite what all the time like this work does. It's some wonderful light reading. You'll notice that it expires this particular year in 2023, and you can be enthusiastic to know that we most likely will be reaching out to you to hear all of your ideas on how we can further historic preservation throughout the Commonwealth. And I know that's coming up soon, so keep your eye out on those great opportunities to share your thoughts on preservation with us. I went this far, I never actually told you, I think I mentioned the due date, but it is annually, our grant application closes on March the 1st. We share DCED's single application for assistance as our grant portal. It's slightly different than some of the other grant applications you might be using in ESA because it's customized just for the PHMC's grant program. If you are awarded funding, you would be notified in June of 2024, and you have, there's some time to get you under our grant contract and start your grant agreement. So you should anticipate that if you're working on a project, you would be able to start in October of 2024. You have 24 months to implement that project. So I know I'm a little out of the ways because everyone else is thinking about current projects, so you have to kind of plan ahead if you're going to talk to me. But please do, I like planning. Some other helpful thoughts, you can certainly read our full grant guidelines on our website. We are phmc@pa.gov. We also have a number of tutorials that help you understand a bit more about the competitive grant application and a little bit more detail on what the grant guidelines are than I can share at 10-minute report with you this morning. And more than anything, I'm happy to talk to you if you're considering an application or if you have some questions about what would make a great program. And again, in your quick little link to DCED's single application for assistance as well. So, thank you all for your time this morning. I like historic figures. It's been great to be here. So, thank you.
Are there any questions for Karen before she steps away?
You can sit.
Yes.
All right, so you said that you do a lot in the preservation but if the historic building is in need of adaptive entrance or
Adaptive reuse.
yes, is that included or is that more a different thing?
Well, we do fund, there are actually strangely enough 4 treatments for historic buildings. So we do restoration, preservation, and rehabilitation. So adaptive reuse falls under rehabilitation, depending on what you're proposing to put in the project. And oftentimes, if you're meeting the Secretary of Interior standards, it can be very sensitive and cleanly and very easily fits into that grant program. So thank you.
Does your match include in kind?
Unfortunately not, but we are only allowed to use recognize cash matches. You can certainly, it certainly is helpful to have in-kind matches, and you can articulate that you've got support. It shows good community support behind it, but there needs to be a dollar for dollar match for the grant. It's a great question. Yes, ma'am.
What about the train stations in the area that they're partially renovated and then they ran out of money?
Depends on who's owning them and how they're operated, but most cases, yes, they would be eligible. We do fund a lot of train stations. There was one in Center County recently that the Chamber of Commerce is located in. As long as it's in their public ownership, owned by either the municipality or a nonprofit, and they do have some public accessibility, it would be something that would be eligible. And train stations usually very easily meet the line for a historic property, obviously. Great, thank you very much.
I don't see any in the chat, so I guess you're good.
Thank you very much. So you've heard about a lot of grants today. Next, we're going to bring up Katie Smith from the Northern Tier Regional Planning and Development Commission. She's going to talk about their free grant writing assistance program. So, if you're not very good at writing the grants, they can offer assistance, or Katie can just write it for you. All right. Thanks, Katie.
As Kevin mentioned, my name is Katie Smith. I work for Northern Tier Regional Planning and Economic Development Commission. So just a brief overview of Northern Tier. How many of you are familiar with our services? Oh, everyone. Okay. Okay, well, a couple, all right. All right, so we are actually a local development district that serves the 5-county northern tier region, encompassing the counties of Bradford, Sullivan, Susquehanna, Tioga, and Wyoming. Our staff provides resources to help businesses, entrepreneurs, local governments, nonprofits, and job seekers meet their challenges and succeed in the northern tier, in Pennsylvania's northern tier. Our programs cover a wide variety of services, including business financing, export counseling, government contract assistance, internet and technology assistance, grant writing, transportation planning, and workforce development. So I am the economic development program manager, so I run a program where we help municipalities, nonprofits, businesses with trying to connect you to a funding source. We have submitted or provided technical assistance with 15 grants just from last January. This is my first year, for a complete year in this position. Those grants range from federal, state, local, and private foundation grants. The grants range from construction, equipment, operational expenses, building acquisitions, infrastructure improvement, advertising, and workforce development. We're actually currently working on 5 grants right now. If you want to pursue this, please reach out to us. We are here to help. If you have an idea for a project, we can kind of guide you to whatever funding source is best fit for your project. We have contacts at many of these agencies that you heard speak today. If we can't find a grant right away, if there are none open currently that fit your criteria, we keep a list, a database of past inquiries, and we will reach back out if something becomes available. So I just wanted to kind of give you a brief overview of grants in general. How many of you have written grants in the past? Okay. So a little bit of general knowledge would be good for this session too. What do grants typically fund? It can be research, educational programs, capacity building, seed funding, targeted scholarship programs, nonprofit operational expenses, equipment, construction. What don't grants typically fund? Personal expenses, most for-profit endeavors, activities advancing specific religions, salaries, and other expenses. Again, that's typically, there are some grants out there that might fund some of those. Where can you find grant opportunities? As a bunch of the agencies did talk today, you can go to their websites, find specific information about their programs, but there are some databases out there currently where you can find a list of grant opportunities from all different agencies. For federal grants, you can go to grants.gov. For Pennsylvania grants, you can go to the single application tool to research grants in the state departments. And all of these state departments, it doesn't cover every single state department, but it covers a bunch of them, including Council of the Arts, Department of Community and Economic Development, DEP, PennDOT, PLCB, Labor and Industry, Office of the Budget, HEMA, and many more. So regional resources, you can go to your heritage regions, your tourism agencies, and other regional assets like that. There are private and community foundations that you can get grants through. I know there's a lot of nonprofit entities out in the audience. I typically recommend Grant Watch, Grant Gopher, any of these search engines for finding grant resources. But again, if you contact us, we would be more than happy to do that work and, you know, again, connect you to those funding sources and work with you through the entire grant process. So one of the biggest things that I suggest before even starting the grant process, read through the RFPs, the RFAs, and program announcements very carefully. These documents set the parameters and guidelines for the grants. So if you don't know what an RFP is, it's a request for proposal. RFA is request for applications, program announcements, program solicitations, notices of inviting applications. But definitely read through these, make sure your project fits those criteria. So key elements in a grant is eligibility. Make sure, you know, make sure nonprofits are eligible or municipalities are eligible for this funding source. Make sure the geographic limitation includes your area. I've had applicants reach out before where they found a grant opportunity, they think it's a fantastic fit, and it is a fantastic fit until you get to the eligibility and you realize it might be Delaware. So it's nice to catch that early on. Funding amounts, make sure what you are trying to go for is within the criteria, the minimum and maximum grant award criteria. Project period, make sure your project fits within that time frame that they give for the grant application. Goals and metrics, tie it to their goals, make sure your goals fit that criteria. Go through the submission instructions, make sure to do that properly. Narrative elements, scoring rubric, budget is a huge thing. Additional resources that you can look into, grant manuals, application packages, online submission tools, and reach out to your points of contact. Should I apply? Am I eligible? Do I have a project that fits the grant parameters? Do I have the resources to develop a proposal under the deadline and implement the project? Can I address all the required elements or bring in partners who can fill in the blanks? Would I be willing to execute the grant if I receive the funding? Can this grant serve as a stepping stone to a bigger or better grant in the future? If you know you're not eligible for this larger grant, take a step back. You know, if you want to go for a planning grant to help support that project in the future, that might be the best way to go about it. Reach out to your program officers. Those connections are vital at each of these agencies or foundations. They are experts in their fields. They can provide guidance to applicants, clarify eligibility, help interpret RFPs and read between the lines, provide resources, and they're an advocate for your project. All of the presenters that you heard today, obviously they all have local ties. They want to see your project succeed in our region. Develop a one-page concept paper to make them better understand, or me, better understand your project. Contact early to try to show preparedness and ask questions on how you can be better prepared to push this project along in the future, even if you're not ready for this grant funding round. You might be ready for the next one if you follow through with the project. Request a consultation, and you can even go through me. I've set up consultations with USDA or DCNR, you know, connecting you to the program officers. Before you begin writing the grant, How do you write a competitive, ask yourself, how do you write a competitive proposal? What are my objectives and outcomes? Narrow down the timelines to the budget and the budget narratives. What other tips and suggestions may help? What if I fail? Well, these questions, you know, what if I fail is, this project fails, you can use this in that project to build off of. Ask the program managers what went wrong, where in this application were the deficits that I need to kind of revamp for the next project that I resubmit. And resubmit, it will not hurt the process. If you don't get funded the first time, resubmit it a second time. In the template narrative, most funders have specialized requirements. So you want to be able to go through those narrative requirements, follow them very, very closely. It could include an executive summary, organizational individual backgrounds, a need assessment, project description, expected impact, management plan, budget and budget narrative, and a conclusion. And how is this project going to be sustainable in the future without grant funding? Sorry, I'm old school with papers. And imagine you already have the grant when you're writing the narrative. Describe chronologically how the money will be spent. Who, what, when, where, and how are your biggest indicators for the narrative? Expand on those. Every sentence should relate to your project. Third person is preferred, such as if it's a county, Wyoming County will do this, this, and this. Always refer to your project in third person. Articulate the alignment with the grant maker goals. Make it as easy as you can for reviewers to understand your project. You don't want to leave any of the agencies, you know, whoever you are going to for the grant. You don't want to leave them with any questions because they might not fund your grant if we're left with a bunch of questions about the project. The more clearly you develop the effort, the easier the narrative will be to write. Always use the SMART framework. Goal setting, which is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. For the project timeline, even if it's not required for the grant, defining clarified sequence and progress of events can help with writing the project narrative and giving the grant makers a better understanding of your project. Many funders have specialized requirements in grant budgets, but in lieu of specific direction, categories may include personal, fringe benefits, travel, equipment, supplies, contractual, construction, indirect costs, and other costs. There should always be a narrative that is included with the budget. Show clear method of calculation for each item. Link each item back to grant activities and the grant maker's goal. A table can make the information easier to digest, even in a narrative, but expanding on that in written format can be helpful to the grant maker. Don't be vague about your budget. For example, a vague budget would include director $90,000. Okay, but you want to be a little bit more specific. The director 50% at $60,000 per year at 3 years is $90,000. Refining your proposal. Seek winning grant proposals. Review abstracts of winning projects. Read literature provided in the RFP. Consider your reviewer audience. And again, consult a program manager, trusted colleague, or a grant consultant. Finalizing the proposal would include making sure the budget adds correctly. The budget corresponds to the narrative. You have addressed all the mandatory elements. All the information that is necessary is provided. Sufficient detail is provided to describe how. The voice is consistent throughout. Make sure your grant is consistent throughout the entire narrative, the budgets, reiteration. A lot of grant makers like reiteration throughout your entire grant. Emphasize the reasons why the project will succeed. Tips and suggestions for grant writing: start the grant submission process early, build the budget early and as you go. Also write the abstract and executive summary last. Less is not more. They want to know exactly what you're going to be doing with the funding. Repetition can help to emphasize key points of your project or program. And again, I know I harp on this, but don't be shy to talk to your program officers or me or anybody that can give you guidance throughout these programs. Have a colleague or a grant writer review your proposal before submitting. More eyes, the better. Again, you might ask yourself the question, what if I fail? I failed in the past, or the grants that I've submitted in the past, they weren't funded. Practice the process. This gives you, a chance to practice it. Establish or deepen your connections with these agencies. That way they'll be able to help you write a better proposal, write a better narrative, a grant throughout. Develop text and materials for future grants and other projects. I know there's been applicants that I've worked with in the past where they might not have gotten funded for one, but they have all the material now if they want to go for a different funding source even, or resubmit to that same funding source. They have the ability to be like, okay, well, we know what's wrong. Now we can just add in these key elements into this grant proposal that we were missing in the last one, but we already have the meat out of the way. And this might give you an idea for a new project, and gather constructive criticism. So those were my tips for grant writing processes. Again, we do provide these services, so you're more than welcome to reach out and we can connect you to any funding sources that you've heard today. We can work with you one-on-one through the whole process. We have another staff person coming on soon, community capacity. They will be working with a lot of nonprofit and municipal projects. So we're actually excited to bring another staff person on. And please feel free to reach out with any questions that you have. Kane has my contact information, or if you want to stop and talk to me before everybody leaves. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. So next we have Janet Sweeney from the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. And I'm going to bring up her PowerPoints.
Were you? Yeah, look.
I love it.
Just pandering to you.
You know, you never have to do that.
So you're saying pointed at the.
Okay. Yes. Supplemental adventure slides.
I'm not gonna put this. So here. So hello, everyone. It's nice to be here.
I'm Janet Sweeney. I'm a vice president with the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. Just, okay, Kate, you said.
Dang. Last time we just had to get it in here.
You're in the gear. You don't know. Okay,
Now try.
so, I wear a lot of hats. Pennsylvania Environmental Council, and as the previous screen, you saw a logo for the Pennsylvania Organization for Watersheds and Rivers. Under both those organizations, we have a number of mini grant programs, but just a little bit about PEC. We are a statewide nonprofit. We have offices in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia State College, and then I am in the next couple of weeks moving into our new office in Dallas, Pennsylvania. So I'm super excited about that. We just had our furniture delivered, and I'm really jazzed about having new furniture and a new office. So PEC has been around for about since 1970, so about 50 years. We kind of do our work along 5 priorities. So policy, energy and climate, watersheds, trails and recreation, and communities and landscapes. And it's under those different priorities that we run our mini grant programs. Why does it say? Huh, okay. So that's right. So as Christine had mentioned earlier, I'm also what's considered the external lead for the Pocono Forest and Waters Conservation Landscape. Christine mentioned there are 8 conservation landscapes. It's a group of counties working together to help DCNR with their initiatives and their priorities. It's usually based on having a lot of DCNR owned lands, having a community that's ready to work together and so forth. So under the Pocono, well, okay, let me just keep going. So then we have the PA Water Trails Program, the Power PA Sojourn River of the Year, which Kane mentioned. The North Branch Susquehanna is River of the Year. And then a new program that we're currently operating out in the Ohio Basin watershed, but we will be taking it statewide. It's not available just yet, but I will be telling you a little bit about it. It's our non-motorized access to Pennsylvania waterways. So the PFW, this is our goals or our priorities for the Pocono Forest and Waters Conservation Landscape. Now, how many people are not or like in any of these counties? Carbon, Lackawanna, Luzerne, Monroe, Wayne. Anyone in the audience? Yay. Okay, awesome. So that is when everyone's been talking about like eligibility for this particular grant program. You have to be in one of these 6 counties to be eligible. So, and I'm hoping some folks that are on the Zoom also, it's relevant to them. But our priorities are conservation, community, and connections. So there's different types of projects that you can do under any of these categories. We like to say that this program is sort of like the frosting on the cupcake of the C2P2 grants. So the DCNR C2P2 grants are typically larger grants. These are smaller. They range from about 2 to 10,000, and they would be like examples would be putting picnic tables at your trailhead, doing educational and wayfinding signage, doing educational outreach to landowners. If you're a land trust and you're trying to conserve land and you're trying to, reach out into the community and express the importance of that. So all different types of projects that fall underneath that, but 2 to 10, 1-to-1 match. And I'm so happy Christine said that. I wish I had videotaped it, that all of the requirements that we have for our grants are because of them. So I can't blame me. But we do have the 1-to-1, but the match can be cash. It can be in kind, or it can be any combination. And we can work with you on that. And it's basically if you go to the DCNR website that Christine highlighted, and it has all of the documentation and the eligible and ineligible expenses. There's a lot of information on that website that you can use to kind of assess your project and the things that you're thinking about doing, whether or not they're eligible. We opened this on the 2nd of March. We're going to close it on the 24th. We're having a pre-application meeting on the 20th. It'll be virtual. And I was thinking about, was it Katie? I was thinking about what Katie was saying about like reaching out and talking to the folks that are offering these grants. Don't be nervous about that. Reach out, call us, talk to us, tell us about your project. And that's what I try to do with these pre-application meetings. And I would encourage any of you who are applying for grants that if they hold these meetings, you should attend them. You should, I give opportunities for people to kind of talk about what they're thinking about. So you know, we can discuss it right then and there. Is it something that we would fund? If it's not, then you won't be wasting the time filling out the grant application. If it is, we can talk about what I also have a review committee, like what we are looking for, what types of projects. So it's really an important step. I certainly don't require that you attend these pre-application meetings, but I certainly highly encourage it. And anyone else who's doing those, anyone else who's been presenting on the grant programs today, I would encourage you to reach out to the grant administrator, and also if they have any kind of meetings or webinars, to attend those for sure. And then we have a pretty, I think, quick turnaround. Basically, after the grants are due, we have our review committee look at them. We have to provide our recommendations to DCNR. Because basically it's our funding comes from them, and they will look at our recommendations. And if we get approval, we turn that right around very quickly, and we will let everyone know by the end of May. And projects start June 1st. We give you a year to 18 months. Like, again, these are supposed to be smaller projects that, you know, you can accomplish in a tighter time frame. So, so that's our PFW. Now I can't even see the title. Kane. Thank you. So I'm less familiar with our water trails grant that is run by Tally MacArthur, and at the end of the slideshow, I have her contact information. But it's another mini grant program. She has a total of 25,000 for this year. The grants can go up to 5,000, 1-to-1 match. She typically opens those grants up in May and closes in early July. You have to be one of the 28 water trails to be eligible for this, or you have to be working with a water trail manager, and EHMR is the water trail manager for the Susquehanna North Branch. So if you want to work on a project with Kane, or Kane I know has applied for these grants before and received them, they typically fund things, signage, developing water trail maps, improvements to launches and things like that. Partnership, stewardship, volunteerism, education, conservation, community, vitality, diversity, wellness, and well-being. It's just, you can see we're throwing the kitchen sink at all of the possibilities, but Tally MacArthur would be the person that you would reach out to talk about this grant program, or reach out to Kane, because I know he, like I said, he's applied for these, he's received these grants. And then Sojourn. Kane has also received Sojourn grants. This grant program is under my hat as the Pennsylvania Organization for Watersheds and Rivers, or POWER. Back to the water trails. There is a pawatertrails.org website you can check out to find out more information on this. POWER, there's a pawatersheds.org that you can find all the information about the Sojourn grants on that website, as well as the PEC website, which I'll show you at the end of the presentation. So the mini grant priorities for Sojourns are on water paddling and educational events open to the public. You have to be a nonprofit, a municipality, an educational institution. Same with all the other ones. This program is statewide. I think the only one that we have that's kind of limited to a scope or an area is the PFW one. This is statewide. We typically have about 35,000 that we give out. The grants are $500 a day for 1-day Sojourn events, and then $1,000 a day for multi-day events. We do have discretion to give you more than that. If we see your budget and we see a need and we like your program, you know, we can work with you. And I think you'll find that true in a lot of other grant programs as well. You know, like I said, talk to your grant administrator, talk about your needs, and there may be some flexibility and wiggle room with those. And there definitely is with us. Again, a 1-to-1 match, can be cash, can be in kind, can be a combination. The Sojourn program opened on January 30th. It closes, so there's still a little bit of time on the 31st, and then we announce at the end of April. We will advertise those that get funded on our Power website. We have a calendar of events, and we'll have all that information on there. We do what's called how many people are familiar with the ESRI story maps, the GIS story maps? Just came. Wow. All right. I wish I had brought the link and shown you. So it's an online tool that kind of visualizes different kinds of projects, and we do a story map, which you can find on the Power website, that we use to advertise the Sojourn programs. And it's really kind of cool. It's pretty pictures, and people can, it'll have like an image of the state of Pennsylvania, and then little, whatever Sojourns we funded, there'll be a line. You can click on the line. It'll bring you to the information about that Sojourn, how you can register, what are the sort of activities that are going on. And it's a way that we also not only provide the grant, the grant funding support to supplement your, what you need to pull on these events, but we help you advertise them. And the story map is really kind of neat. And it's very visual, fun way to market those. I would encourage you guys to look into those. If you're not doing them for your projects or your municipalities, definitely. It's kind of just a really fun way, and it's better than words and reports looking at you. It's very visual, and it's fun. Do you have one?
So,
Okay, all right. So River of the Year, I just had to throw this in there because North Branch is the River of the Year this year, but it is another statewide program that we run under Power. Nonprofit, municipality, educational institution. This runs a little bit differently. It's a nomination process. So we accept nominations, typically late fall, September, October, and then we close the nomination process in November. We have a review committee. We look at the nomination process is questions like, do you have the ability to hold a sojourn? What are the conservation needs of the river or the creek? And it's not just rivers, it's Pennsylvania waterways. Have you ever held an event like this before? Do you have a year-long slate of events that you have planned that you can conduct? So we look at all of those things. We kind of narrow it down, typically 3 to 5, and then we open that up to a online voting process. So the entirety of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania gets to, learn about these rivers and then vote for their favorite river. And Kane did a marvelous job advertising all of the wonderful things that they're doing with the Susquehanna, all of the challenges they face, the things that they have done to improve the river and promote the river. And I can't remember what the vote was, but you did really well. How much?
we received 35%.
35% of the vote. And I think it was over 14,000 votes. So it's really kind of fun. And it's also another way to, the other rivers that were up for voting, it also raises the awareness of those rivers as well. So we can start looking at our rivers and our waterways as resources, as opposed to things to stay away from. They are now resources, and they're bringing people into our communities. You get a $10,000 grant if you're the winning River of the Year. And then there's, like I said, Kane's got a slew of events planned. I highly encourage you to attend all those. I know the kickoff sojourn's June 2nd. I'm probably taking away stuff. But congratulations. And I got my totally pandering to Kane. I don't know why. I know. I know. So here's the one that I wanted. This is the new program that we have. It started in the Ohio Basin, and we called it the Ohio Basin Access for Canoes and Kayaks program. We received funding from the Richard King Mellon Foundation, the PA Fish and Boat Commission, and then DCNR as well. The intent of the program is to provide non-motorized access to Pennsylvania waterways. The program that's open right now, like I said, is focused on the Ohio Basin. It's for design and engineering, construction, upgrade, rehab, and it's only for non-motorized. You can use it for a slew of other things as well, signage, parking, trailhead or, water trailhead improvements and so on. We currently have in that program about 300,000. The grants range up to 30,000. It's a 1-to-1 match. You have to own the property or have an agreement with the property owner. You have to say that you will keep this site open to the public, has to be maintained for 25 years. This grant program is open on a rolling basis. And we are in the process of adjusting the application because we are going to take this statewide. We have support from DCNR to the tune of about 150,000 at this point to take that program statewide. So we're very excited about that. And we're in talks with Fish and Boat to see if they're interested in having us expand this program. So if anyone is interested in that, there'll be information on the Power website, and we'll keep you informed as far as like when those applications open. But there is, they're just going to be open on a rolling basis. And our review committee just kind of looks at them as they come in. And then we, in discussions with the applicants, we decide whether or not we're going to fund the project. So for the PFW, the Sojourn, the River of the Year, the non-motorized access, I am your contact person, Jay Sweeney at pecpa.org. And for the water trails, like I mentioned, it's Tally MacArthur. All of the applications can be found on the PEC website. It's pecpa.org/apply. We have a program called Submittable, that's our application platform. It's really, I think, fairly simple. Other people may argue with me about that. But you just have to have if you don't have a Submittable account, you just have to, put in your username and a login, and then you have a Submittable account. You can work on your project. You can share your application with some of your colleagues. If you're working with others on the application, you can save it. You can print out a copy. Usually what we do is most of the applications are due by 5 of whatever business day. Once that hits, that's it. Your application, if you were in draft and you didn't finish it and you didn't hit submit, it goes away. I have no idea that you were working on an application. It's some aspect of this Submittable software privacy thing that I don't know who the drafts are. So if you're applying for us and then we say 5 o'clock, by 4:55, because everybody's watches are different, I would hit submit so that you're sure that it got submitted, and you'll get an email that says thank you. If you don't get that email, give us a call. If you have any trouble with the platform, there's information on the website of who to reach out to at Submittable. If you're having any questions with your grant applications, you can reach out to me. And that's about it. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Janet?
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
So I have this obsession with Weird Al Yankovic. And so I came up with a song for Janet. I sing it to the tune of Elton John's Benny and the Jets, and I call it Sweetie and the Max. So just thought I'd put it in. So next we have, and I want to let you guys know, you'll be happy to hear the snow has not even started yet, so you're still good. And we only have 2 more presentations, and that will be myself. And up next is April Hannon from PennDOT District 4. She's the project manager over there. I will get her PowerPoint started here. Give me 1 second.
I also invited Steve Fisher to join from our office because he knows all about this stuff. He'll introduce himself, but he's our planning and programming manager. I borrowed the presentation from our business plan, so this was our first slide. And you can see this is the Mott Street Bridge, if anybody knows in Pike County where that is. My name's April Hannon. I work for PennDOT District 4. We manage Lackawanna, Luzerne, Pike, Lane, Wyoming, and Susquehanna. Did I say all of them? Okay. I usually go alphabetically. And so Today, we're going to talk about the funding opportunities on the paper that I put out in the hall. This is going to be emailed to everyone, and there are the links to the websites on here and the links to the people that are in charge of all these programs. So in District 4, I'm in charge of, I'm the project manager for transportation alternative programs, the multimodal programs, the RLE program, automated red light enforcement, and a lot of other weird local programs like Appalachian Regional Commission, the TIF, which we're going to talk about on the slides. And I am also the bicycle pedestrian coordinator, the byways coordinator. I wear many hats in the district. So today we're going to be talking about the funding opportunities that we know about that come from the state and some other places, and some of the programs that I talk about. So we have a lot of stuff on this form. You can see that the sheet has a ton of information on it. We're going to breeze through it because I know we want to get to lunch. So Steve wants to introduce himself, and he's going to start out with the first slide.
Good morning, my name is Steve Fisher. I'm a transportation planning specialist with District 4 PennDOT.
We'll jump start.
And I'll just get started here with the first slide. I told April I'd help her with it. It's predominantly I work with the planning organizations in Lackawanna, Missouri, Pike, Wayne, Wyoming, and Susquehanna. And mostly what I do is we handle the program for all federal and state funds that come into, all capital federal state funds that come into the program. And we work with Northern Tier up here in Wyoming and Susquehanna. And predominantly, we help divide the TIP funds that are received to those organizations among all facets of transportation. And for the most part, our program is heavy into asset management and concentrating on roads and bridges. But as we work with our regional planning organizations, we are able to include enhancement projects and things of that nature. That transportation improvement program is updated every 2 years, so there's always opportunity to reach out to your regional planning organizations and potentially secure additional funding opportunities.
So Paul talked about this from DCED. This is their program. We do have it on this funding opportunity sheet. So I'm not going to talk about this again, but it is on your sheet. And again, there's a when you this sheet is actually going to be emailed to everyone that did register. So when you get the sheet in your inbox, you'll be able to click on the links that are in there. So some of them are up here, but they'll all be on that email that you get. This is a program called TIF, Transportation Infrastructure and Investment Fund. This is a reserve of $25 million per year in state funds set aside for transportation improvements aimed at improving Pennsylvania's transportation system related to economic development. So the decisions on this, on how to utilize this funding, are the discretion of the governor and the Secretary of Transportation. So this is something you want to talk to your legislators about. One of the projects that was just funded in Luzerne County is Wilkes University River Street Streetscape project. So that's one of the projects that I will be managing for $2 million. It was funded for. So the next program is multimodal transportation funding. The Multimodal Transportation Fund. This is the eligibility for this program. Any municipality, council of governments, business, nonprofit, economic development organizations, public transportation agencies, ports or rail freight entities. And the qualifying activities, funds may be used for the development, rehabilitation, and enhancement of transportation assets.
Also, as part of this program, is we have a difficult time funding local infrastructure, specifically bridges. Up here in the Wyoming County region, we were able to fund Fox Road Bridge using a combination of DCD multimodal funds and PennDOT multimodal funds. So when we speak to the opportunities of collaboration and coordination, this is one of those examples of where we can basically stack funding to go towards different projects.
And to add to that about applying for this funding, again, Christine talked about all of the acronyms. This is MTF, we call it MTF or MTM. And one of the things we wanted to say is that you want to try to put all modes of transportation in your application for this. What we do for some of these programs is a webinar prior to the application process, and we do a webinar for the multimodal. And you will be applying for that in the e-grant system. So the grants are available from 100,000 up to 3 million, and the match requirement, the eligible is 30% of award. So your eligible match would be something along the lines of your liquid fuels, your general funds, and some LSA funding. That's it. State or federal does not match the multimodal. And in some cases, municipalities only can get match waivers. So that's something to think about when you're applying. The new round of the multimodal is going to open up in September and it closes in November. This is I wanted to talk about pictures, but I forgot as we're going by. This is the multimodal that was completed in Scranton. It's the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Trail. They did a connection to get you to the downtown. So right here is 7th Avenue, and it comes right out on Lackawanna Avenue to get you into town or to Steamtown. Some other funding that you can consider for your projects, the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Grant. It's the PIB loan, and you probably all know about what a PIB loan is, but it's a PennDOT program that provides low interest loans to help fund transportation projects. The next program I want to talk about is the Transportation Alternative Funding program, or Transportation Alternative Set Aside. Sorry, I'm getting to my slide over there. So the Transportation Alternative Program previously combined the enhancement program, the safe routes to school, the scenic byways, and recreational trails. They're all rolled into Transportation Alternatives Program now. This is a federal program, which is 80% federal, 20% total. But what that means is your costs up front are your local match, and the cost for the transportation alternatives you would get for construction and inspection. So anything you do up front is what you would provide as per se your match. You don't have to provide the match during construction or inspection. Everything is up front. The allocations are shown up here, and the minimum project cost is 50,000 up to $1 million. Some statewide projects have gotten up to $1.5 million to 2 million because they have statewide significance. This program also does a webinar beforehand, and one of the things I didn't talk about was it's very beneficial to you to have a meeting with PennDOT, with myself, with Steve or I, before you apply for the for any of these programs. It is required now in the Transportation Alternatives Program to have a meeting with us. And in the multimodal, the questions are asked of both programs. Did you meet with PennDOT? Did you talk to them about your project? You know, do they know, are there any other projects going on? It's something you always want to do is contact us, and just we'll answer questions, we'll help you out with the process, and definitely let us know about the project because it's better for you. Also, the more the funding, we talked a lot about funding and benefiting, leveraging fundings from everyone. The further along you are in your project, the better. So if you've received DCNR funding and you have a fully designed project, you're going to get more consideration for your project the more you have done. So keep going through all of the different fundings, trying to find funding for everything you need before you apply for some of these things, especially transportation alternatives. Again, very competitive statewide programs. These are the categories for the Transportation Alternatives Program. And this is one of the bridges that we use that, Steve, you know what bridges is? This is from Lazy Brook. It's in Lazy Brook Park. It was another one of our bridges. And we have a historic bridge program. So if you're looking to do a bridge, if you're looking to use an old bridge somewhere, maybe on a trail or like in a park or something like that, we do have a historic bridge program.
So we kind of spoke about stacking the different fundings. This was a project that was funded off of essentially the transportation improvement program from Northern Tier. In addition, it also received historical money and enhancement money. So it was an opportunity to really go after additional funds to not only preserve the historic structure, relocate it, but also we put a bridge into place that was fully functional at the park.
And the sponsor eligibility for the Transportation Alternatives Program, same as it has been for past years, local governments, regional transportation authorities, transit agencies, natural resource or public land agencies, including federal agencies, school districts, local education agencies or schools, tribal governments, nonprofit entity responsible for the administration of local transportation safety programs. That was brought back in. Any other local regional government entity with responsibility or oversight of, and that continues down, that's part of this. Transportation of recreational trails, that the state determines to be eligible consistent with the goals of subsection C of section 213. So that's though it's confusing, but if you want to know if you're eligible, you can ask me. Another one of our programs is the Green Light Go program. This is a Pennsylvania's Municipal Signal Partnership Program. This program is managed by our signal unit in the district. And this is eligible projects are study and removal of unwarranted signals, traffic signal retiming, development of detour special event plans, LED replacement, signal operations and maintenance, innovative technologies, communications, connections to the traffic maintenance center or TMC, detection and control. I don't know what that acronym means, TMC, traffic management center, sorry. Too many acronyms. Detection and controller upgrades and modernization upgrades. So this is strictly a signals program for your municipalities. This is some of the general information about the Green Light Go, whether it's a local grant element or a PennDOT project element. The next round of this, unfortunately, it closed in January, will not be until January 1st, 2024 to January 31st, 2024. The automated red light enforcement, ARLE. This is transportation enhancement grants to local, regional, and Commonwealth agencies for projects that improve highway safety and mobility. So the eligible applicants, local authority, metropolitan planning organization, county planning organization, rural planning organization, and Commonwealth agencies. This is something that I try to encourage people to use for their trail crossings or a lot of the eligible categories, traffic signals, intersection improvements, school zone improvements, guide road improvements, roadside safety, and LTAP programs. But this is a good one to tie in. We have a crossing in Carbondale that is under construction right now that was done through ARLE, and it's benefiting the YMCA, the town, and the trail because it crosses you over to get over to the trail. So I try to get people to think about out of the box, how can we use this ARLE funding for our trail, for our safety improvements in town. There's no match requirement for ARLE, and cost sharing is encouraged. This round is June 1st to June 30th, so it's going to be coming up, and $3 million to $8.8 million every year. This is, by the way, not an ARLE project, but I was looking for a signal project, and this is a multimodal that was the Middleburg Road crossing of the DNL Trail. We actually have a pedestrian crossing over the railroad. Okay, so I went through that pretty fast. There's a lot of information on there. Any questions for Stephen or I? Yes.
Radar speed signs, does that fall under detection and controller upgrades or any other program you're aware of?
I'm pretty sure that falls under the Arlie program. We just had, Milford Borough was one of our Arlies this year where they did get funding to buy four of those signs.
The ones that,
The ones that are gonna stay in place, not movable. So the ones that tell you your speed as you're traveling. Mhm.
Okay, and when did that close?
The Arlie round opens up June 1st to June 30th.
Thank you.
Yes,
what are LTAP programs?
LTAP programs are,
That's the local transportation assistant program, and pretty much what that is, it's PennDOT's municipal services provides trainings on all sorts of aspects of our business that have to do with municipal enhancement, where they come in and we can teach them about how to properly pave roads, how to, essentially, it's not us. It's not us, it's a consultant that comes in and essentially gives them all aspects of training. Could be chainsaws, could be, working on local roads and how to improve those, local traffic safety enforcement, that sort of thing. It's basically our hub is what we consider it for local trainings.
All right, so the T is for training, not for transportation.
Correct.
Right.
What was the name of that program?
LTAP.
LTAP.
I think you can subscribe to that too, and you'll get emails about all the trainings they have, because I subscribe once and I get them every day.
But they also-
Very beneficial.
They also offer details on fundings, stuff like that. You can ask for pretty much anything under the sun that we provide.
And some of the things that I think Janet touched on that I wanted to add to for multimodal. A lot of people come to us afterwards and say, where did you review my project? And they're getting very strict with exactly what you have to do in the e-grant system. So you need to attach every single thing they're asking. And if something's not attached, your application's thrown out. So that's why we ask you to try to get to us first. Do your application early, because if it did not submit and something's wrong, you have time to fix it. And if you get to the last minute on the last day and you don't have what you need, your application's not going to be any good. So that's something to think about with all of these programs. Any other questions? Should I start singing karaoke?
Why
Are we ready?
Thank you both so very much. Can we get a round of applause for all of our speakers today? We all did a fantastic job. Thank you. So I am going to talk a little bit about our grants program. Once I make sure that everyone on the screen can see it as well. There we go. Okay. So each spring, the Ellis Mountains Heritage Region offers our partnership and/or mini grants program, which is funded by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, our parent agency. And I did, like Janet and I both mentioned, the River of the Year designation that we got for our North Branch water trail that we manage. But what I didn't mention was the fact that we are also celebrating our 25th anniversary in 2023. We were established in 1998, so we're really excited to be celebrating 25 years. I would have loved to have been in the organization from the beginning, but I was only 10 years old when it started. So was always very engaged in the outdoors and always a history buff. So I was just really happy to come to this organization in 2018 during its 20th anniversary. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We are membership based. So we would love to have all of you become members of the organization. It's one of 12 current heritage areas across the Commonwealth. And as I said, we are designated by the DCNR. We serve Bradford, Sullivan, Susquehanna, and Wyoming counties. And that is a 2,850 square mile area. So my odometer proves it. We have quite a few other heritage areas that are even larger than ours that we partner with on a regular basis. I actually just got back from Harrisburg yesterday, meeting with Heritage PA, our umbrella agency. So we're doing some advocacy down there to make sure that our state legislators are aware of the Heritage Areas program and making sure we are properly funded so we can keep doing the programming that we do. So through DCNR's financial support and its the mini grants program, we've brought nearly $3 million into the 4-county economy since the program started, and that was matched by another $3 million in kind and cash match. So this allows the organizations that we fund to reinvest in their communities, counties, programs, things of that nature. So these projects are related to historic preservation, outdoor recreation. We do a lot of conservation as well with our greenways and water trails, our scenic enhancements. We funded mural projects as well as overlook projects. We just finished one in Oakland Borough up there. We also helped with the murals here on the Dietrich Theater. If you haven't walked around back to see those, they are absolutely stunning. Bob did a beautiful job on those. We do educational programming as well, which we always like to incorporate into our outdoor events, whether it be teaching kayaking safety, the history of the river, the ecology of the river, environmental stewardship, things of that nature. So with a theme of living with the land, and that's our agricultural theme, you'll notice each heritage area across the state kind of has, whether it's an industrial theme, a highway corridor that they serve, like the PA Route 6 Alliance, each one of us has a theme. And because of our history here in the Endless Mountains, we obviously chose agriculture. So we have also done quite a bit of building rehabilitations. That's mostly for museums and historical societies that we serve, which we've also helped do exhibits and other educational programming. So the mini grant guidelines, this year we have $65,000 available in funding for our 28 session. Grant requests must be between 500 and 10,000 and have a full match. And we always like to say that that does not have to be cash, that can also be in kind. Gene from the Visitors Bureau pointed out the current volunteer rate. So that can add up pretty quickly if you get yourself a good group of volunteers, and you can make up for that match pretty quickly. So continue the applications. All applicants must be paying members of the EHMR. During COVID, when we were trying to help relieve a lot of the financial burden on folks and keep our membership going, we transitioned to a free membership. We are starting in the process of transitioning back to a paid membership because that helps us obviously continue and further our mission. So we wanted to make sure that all the applicants during that period were paying members. If we're giving you a lot of funding, we want to make sure that you're supporting our organization as well. And they are pretty nominal fees. They are nothing exorbitant. So each applicant is limited to submitting 2 grant applications, and contracts would begin June 5th and should be completed by September 2nd, 2024. So we give you a little over a year and 2 summers to get your projects done. I always like to say that we give 2 summers because much of the projects we fund are outdoors. So we want to make sure that you have at least a good summer of decent weather where you can get your contractors out there and get it done. Extensions are available if necessary. Our grant rounds with DCNR are 3 years in length. So we give a little over a year to get the projects done and a little bit of an extension out to maybe a year and a half at most. That way, once we need to close out our DCNR grants, all of our mini grant applications are closed out. So eligible mini grant applications, you must be a 501c3, a nonprofit like us, and you must have a number from the Bureau of Charitable Organizations. We have helped organizations get this designation in the past. We don't like to do it a ton, but most of the organizations that have applied to us have applied many times. So they've gotten this number. So at this point, if you are an up-and-coming nonprofit and need that assistance, we can provide that to you. I know Northern Tier could likely help out with that as well. So obviously the counties we serve are eligible: Bradford, Sullivan, Susquehanna, Wyoming. All the municipalities and municipal agencies within those counties. Our local school districts, we've done quite a bit with some of them. We like to provide sponsorships for the mobile ag science lab that comes around to different school districts. It's quite a costly thing that it's basically a 40-foot mobile trailer filled with agricultural displays and farming exhibits where kids can do the hands-on activities. throughout the entire week, and they go up grade levels throughout the week. So we provide $500 scholarships for that to come to your school, and we come out and work with the kids a little bit. So it's a really cool thing we do. We also help fund the Historic Preservation Club at the Montrose High School. So anything that your school districts have going on in terms of outdoor recreation or historic preservation, please reach out to us. We'd love to work with you on some of those projects. And of course, your organization must be based within or serve EHMR's 4-county region. So suitable projects, I'm going to continue on that a little bit. Historic preservation must be a public venue. A lot of people, come to say, oh, I have this historic barn on my property that I'd like to restore. If it's not something you're going to get that nonprofit designation for or open up to the public, we can't really help you with it. We are simply trying to make sure that we are creating historic and heritage sites that bring people to them. Outdoor recreation development, our parks, greenways, land and water trails. We also help with the scenic overlooks, as I mentioned before. We've also helped with special purpose studies. We recently helped Lanesboro and Susquehanna Depot come up with a feasibility study of how those municipalities could be connected to the DNA Trail, which we successfully nominated as Trail of the Year in 2021. So educational programming pertaining to nature, agriculture, outdoor recreation, and regional history, environmental conservation initiatives, certain building rehabilitation projects I mentioned before, and interpretive and wayfinding signage for our outdoor rec sites. We recently helped do an overlook project on the Martins Creek Viaduct in Susquehanna County. And the interpretive signage really gives you the full experience. It's showing you the history of how that site came to be. The nearby Dennis Farm, we've also come up with some signage there that kind of provides a self-guided tour of the property. If you go out to Clifford Township, there is some signage to kind of convey the different projects that have gone on at the community park there. So we're constantly doing signage projects. There's even Wyoming County sign, which we have a version of here in the lobby, but that is also out here on the green here at the Dietrich Theater. So projects should further our mission and goals that are outlined in our newly updated and adopted management action plan. We spent over 2 years working on that. So we're really proud that that's finally finished. It's been approved by the DCNR, adopted by our board, and will be published here very soon prior to the opening of our grant application process to make sure that people are familiar with the guidelines they're going to have to meet. So the mission that we came up with during that was to celebrate, preserve, and enhance the rural character and culture of the Endless Mountains Heritage Region. There's a number of different goals. Attracting visitors is obviously always an important one, getting them to our heritage sites and outdoor recreation sites. Protect and enhance our heritage assets, our cultural landscapes and natural features. Engage residents and visitors within the region's culture and heritage through educational programming, events, and tourism promotion. Offer a wide range of heritage and outdoor recreation destinations, and obviously preserve and promote agricultural growth and deliver authentic experience of living in the land. So, project credit, this is something that we always try to put out there. As a small nonprofit that serves the 4-county region, we're always trying to show that convey the work that we do along with the DCNR. So when you do any signage, you do a project with us, or even any programming that would involve brochures or pamphlets, we just want to make sure that our logos are included on there so people realize that this program is available to them and the work that EHMR is doing in the region. So make sure that, this is actually included in the sub-agreement. We made it a little larger this year so it would stand out. Precise language that you need to include on the signage and or programming is listed right there. So this can be accomplished with a plaque or a sign at the project site or simply an acknowledgement in the brochure and funded materials. So this is also something that you can include in your actual grant, or if it's a minor addition, you can just pay for it out of pocket. So it's entirely up to you. Eligible reimbursements, contracted and professional costs. So if you hire a consultant or contractor for the project, that is something that can be reimbursed. In-house professional costs, so your staff, We also have other project cash costs, and that could be, something as simple as, basically someone, brought in equipment for the day and donated that material. So they were, brought in a excavator to help you with your park project. You can actually utilize that as match. So only costs accrued within the grant period. So be sure that, when you apply for the grant funding, you haven't already accomplished a good portion of the project. We can only do things, fund things that are done within the grant period, which I will be pointing out here shortly. So ineligible expenses, obviously the expenses prior to the start date of the signed agreement, and I went back one. Grant scholarships, fellowships given to third parties, we can't fund those. Indirect costs like general operations and overhead are not associated with the project. Award items, giveaways, promotional materials, those aren't anything that we fund. You'd be likely more better off going to your tourism bureaus for that type of thing. And we can't fund equipment. Say your museum needs a new lawnmower. That isn't actually something that we can fund. We would be happy to maybe help you spread the word and do some fundraising with you, but it's not something that we can actually fund with our grant application. So your eligible forms of match, any additional cash costs, your contract professional services, as I mentioned, volunteer and in-house professional services, those donated professional services I was talking about, say someone donates equipment or their time, and the equipment use. So the application form, be sure to explain how your project furthers the goals of the EHMR, how it aligns with the mission that we have. That is all found on the cover sheet that'll be included in the application. The deliverables or final projects from your project should be succinct and measurable. So when you're actually saying, what are the final project deliverables in your application, you're going to say something along the lines of, we'll produce 3 interpretive signs to be installed at this project site, or 2 educational workshops held with 15 or 25 attendees each. Building renovation that is going to improve our museum or historical society so we can welcome more people in a safe, venue. Things along those lines. So in your application form, be sure to list partners committing any type of match. We like to see those commitments, and be sure that your match is either secured or pledged. List your partners supporting the projects. Letters of support are always important to any grant application, showing that you have your community support as well as your project partners. Show your project can be completed prior to the September 2nd, 2024 deadline. We don't like to grant those extensions if we don't have to. So if you're able to show us that you can complete it in that 2 summer time frame, we're much happier and you're more likely to be approved for funding. Be as specific as possible in the budget section. We don't need a huge in-depth detail about your budget, but we do want to get the nitty-gritty, the basic stuff that you are going to be doing with this funding from one source. So our grant review committee, they are looking for well thought out and adequately explained projects. They want to make sure that they will be completed in that time frame. Incorporates partner collaborations. We love to see people working together. As a nonprofit that serves the 4-county region, we have an abundance of heritage partners. So it's nice for us to see that the organizations and entities in our region are doing the same thing. That way we are all, trying to work toward the same goal. Applicant experience. Like I said before, we've had a lot of organizations apply throughout the years. They know what we're looking for. The Dietrich Theater happens to be one of them. They've applied for grants. I don't know how many years running now, Erica, quite a few. So, that experience obviously is going to help you. We want to make sure that you are familiar with the program, familiar with our heritage area and what we do. So realistic budget amounts, matches identified and secured, and it supports and advances EHMR's goals and priorities. So here's the timeline. We are going to begin accepting applications starting Friday, April 7th. They are due by 4 p.m. on Monday, May 8th. So you have a little over a month to get them done. Like I said, they are not that in-depth. If you wanted to start working on them now, that is perfectly fine. Just make sure you're lining up your letters of support, your financial commitments, making sure that you're getting a budget that is going to, really pertain to the project that you're wanting to get funded. And we will make sure that you are notified by letter or email no later than May 26th. We want to get that done before Memorial Day weekend, so we can come back and hit it pretty hard and get the contracts going early June. We're looking at June 5th for projects to begin. So basically, once you find out if you were awarded any funding, we will reach out to you with the sub-agreement, the contracts, things of that nature. We'll get that all signed, and you'll be able to start pretty much right away. So basically, what I wanted to elaborate was that, you know, it is not a really in-depth application, but we do want, obviously, our, you know, applicants to take it seriously. We want to make sure that these projects are something that will help further our new mission, based on the management action plan that we just adopted. So it's really important. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, reach out to us. We were happy to welcome back Vanessa Billings-Sealer. She was, you know, working with us for many, many years, and she really fell in love with this partnership grants program. So after she had left the organization, we hired Savannah Schools as our new administrative assistant, standing right back there. And she's been doing very well with this program, but we felt we'd keep Vanessa on for a little longer to work with Savannah. And hopefully, once we can get some, you know, staff building capacity funding, we can, you know, bring on Vanessa as our grants coordinator for this program. They're doing a fantastic job, and we really look forward to working with her again. So that is something we're hoping we can continue into the future. This partnerships program has been made possible through DCNR C2P2 program that Christine had talked about before, as well as Environmental Stewardship Fund. So if you have any questions for me, this is my information. We're also going to put up the information for all the speakers once again. But thank you very much. Do you have any questions for me? Yes.
I don't have a question, but on behalf of the Nicholson Heritage Association, I'd like to thank you for and the EHMR for the signages.
Absolutely.
And also, I would like to thank PennDOT for our grant for renovating our station.
It's
And
really beautiful. I haven't been out there. Go and check it out. We're
Yes.
along Route 11 in Nicholson. It is absolutely stunning what they have done with that railway station.
almost ready to open.
It is almost ready to open.
And also PennDOT, I'd like to thank them for the Nicholson Streetscape project that we received the grant, and it will be in the working soon.
Very good.
So.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Awesome. When is Nicholson Heritage Day this year?
September, I think 11th.
Okay. Very good. Excellent. Yes, if you haven't been out to see it, it was kind of a dilapidated structure for a very long time, and the Heritage Association has done just an outstanding job getting that back to something the community can really be proud of. So if you haven't been out there to see it, definitely it's worth the trip for sure. And you get to see the beautiful Nicholson Viaduct. So
We're going to have the grand opening soon.
okay,
Josh,
be sure to let us know. We'd love to be there. All right, so I'm going to put on everyone's contact information so everyone can grab that. Make sure that you have it. We are really happy you all came out today. We thank you so much. We thank the Dietrich Theater for hosting us once again. We'll want to thank the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce for helping us with the Zoom. Sorry you all had to deal with the tech difficulties there online, but it went very well. We'll make sure that this is posted to our website as well as the presentations, so you can come back if there was anything you missed. You can go back and review the information and make sure you're ready for the grant program that you are interested in. So want to thank all our speakers once again. Give them another round of applause. We appreciate it. And we finish before the snow. So safe travels home. Thank you very much once again.